Good morning, all. Welcome to Sheridan Game and Fish meeting. Calling the meeting to order. Please silence your cell phones. I'm going to do a roll call. Commissioner Bell.
Here.
Commissioner Haskell. Commissioner Lundvall.
Here.
Commissioner Mai.
Here.
Commissioner Masterson.
Here.
And Commissioner Roberts is not here today, and I'm Commissioner Jolovich. Members of the public who wish to address the commission on any agenda item, please fill out a comment form located at the registration table and hand it to one of the department staff who will forward it to me. Assisting with the meeting today is Tina Schmidt. If you are participating via Zoom, you should have submitted an advance comment form prior to the start of the meeting. If you would still like to comment on an agenda item, please contact the host of the meeting. As we work through the agenda, the public will have an opportunity to address the commission. To ensure everyone has an opportunity to speak, and as a courtesy to others, please limit your time. Commissioners, make sure your mic is on. That's when the red light is on, you're on. Also, I've got some glasses that ended up here that if somebody is missing a case with glasses in it, they're up here. Can we all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please? Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America, the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, what do we got?
We're on number 18. Oh, wait, no, 19.
17.
Yep, we never did 17, so Aaron first.
We got caught up from yesterday. We're all done with it.
Yeah, we got. Sorry.
Okay, we're good. Law enforcement. Good morning.
Good morning, President Jolovich, members of the commission, Director Bruce, Aaron Kerr, law enforcement supervisor stationed in Casper. And I'm here to talk about some updates to Chapter 54 of Commission Regulation. That's the home state license suspension procedures for the Wildlife Violator Compact. And just to give you some brief background on the Violator Compact, it started out as a reciprocal agreement between 7 or 8 states in the West in 1991, basically to honor license suspensions of hunting, fishing, or trapping licenses and privileges for violators who had been convicted of wildlife crimes. And Wyoming joined the compact in 1996, and so we've been a compact member for 30 years. And now the compact has grown to 49 states. So have one holdout that's actually in the process of joining the compact. That's the state of Hawaii. They have legislation that's been passed. They're finalizing their rulemaking process. So eventually this is going to be a nationwide compact. So really Chapter 54 deals with Wyoming's internal procedures for dealing with license suspensions and notification of violators who are going to become entered into the violator compact. So if a Wyoming violator commits a crime here, a judge finds that they're guilty, can impose a suspension. The length depends on the seriousness of the violation. And the judge has some latitude there. But for example, if someone's suspended for 2 years, once that court judgment comes through, the department actually notifies that particular violator in compliance with this regulation to let them know, hey, you're going to be in the violator compact now, and your suspension could be honored by all those other member states. And then we also will notify, for example, if South Dakota suspends a Wyoming resident for a violation and they go into the database that's shared between the states. When we see that, we will notify that Wyoming violator that, hey, we see that you were suspended in South Dakota. Now Wyoming is going to honor that suspension as a member of the compact. So really this regulation talks about how we notify people of those. And then there's the procedures that a violator has their due process rights for contesting a suspension. Maybe something happened that they had their privileges reinstated that we weren't made aware of, those kind of things that this outlines their procedures for contesting those. So really the main purpose of this change today is to recognize that there were 6 states that have joined the compact since 2015, which is the last time this chapter was amended. And those states are Delaware, Kentucky, Massachusetts, Nebraska, New Jersey, and North Carolina. And so essentially what this does is adds those states into the definition of the compact in the regulation that clarifies that, yes, Wyoming has the potential to honor suspensions from those states as well. And then there's a couple of minor grammatical changes throughout the regulation, but none of the intent or processes in the regulation itself changed. So department is recommending that the commission pass Chapter 54 as presented, and I'll stand for any questions you might have.
Good morning, Mr. President. I appreciate the comments. They seem perfectly appropriate and everything's good. I have a suggestion for you. And I say this from having recent experience dealing with trying to give someone notice. Can sometimes be, it seems like such an easy thing to give someone notice. But when they move around a lot, they fail to forward mail, and then they come in and they say, well, you didn't send me the right kind of notice and I didn't get it. And then all of a sudden we have an issue dealing with, did we comply? Did we comply with the rules? And I note that it's actually the second page of the rule. It's Roman numeral. It's paragraph B. Written notice of the suspension shall be sent to the violator by first-class mail to the violator's last known address. That makes so much sense, but I've had issues with something that is that logical and makes so much sense. I would suggest you add to that the violator's last known address of record with the department, because that puts the burden on the individual to update their address with the department. And so the department is secure in sending it to the last address it has for the person, regardless of whether they move, regardless of anything else. By saying last known address, well, I told Warden X that I had moved. Might it happen? Yeah, people are clever and sly. And I think it's an innocuous change that if you just say of record with the department, that means that is the official notice address, no ifs, ands, or buts. So, Mr. President, I would move to amend the proposed changes to Chapter 54 as indicated in subsection B of Section 5 by adding at the end of that sentence, it would then read last known address of record with the department. I would make that motion.
I have a motion and a second to accept revised Chapter 54 as amended. Do we have any discussion? Any? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried as amended. Thank you.
Thank you, commissioners.
Thank you.
Good morning, President Jolovich, members of the commission, and Director Bruce. My name is Diana Miller. I'm a fisheries biologist up in the Jackson office. And today I just want to chat with you a little bit about a project that we've worked on with the University of Wyoming through the Cooperative Fish and Wildlife Research Unit. And that project was using genetic stock identification to understand cutthroat trout in the main stem of the Snake River. And I want to make sure you all understand that all of the credit for all of this work goes to Jeff Baldock. He was a graduate student at the University of Wyoming. He started as a master's student, and his original project was funded by Game and Fish through state wildlife grant funds. And after he finished that work, he decided to continue his academic life and stayed as a PhD student. So his master's work is the first 2 chapters of his dissertation, which is up here on the screen. And the last 2 chapters are what he finished out his dissertation work on. So we didn't fund those last 2 chapters of work, but we did work really closely with him on the field portions. And what I want to chat with you about today is this chapter 4. This is the genetic stock identification work. And this title is a little bit confusing, but the idea is really pretty simple. And that is, how do tributary systems in a place like the Snake River that has lots of connected tributaries, how do those tributaries actually contribute to the main stem cutthroat trout population in the Snake River? And Jeff wanted to understand that by using something called genetic stock identification, or GSI. And GSI is actually really common in the salmon world. And the idea is you can take baseline samples, genetic samples, from rivers where they know salmon spawn, and you can get a genetic fingerprint of each individual river. And once you have that fingerprint, you can go out to that population of salmon in the ocean, you can collect genetic samples, and then assign those back to the river that they came from. So instead of understanding and going out to every river every year to understand what your salmon population looks like, you can just take samples from the ocean and then assign those back to the rivers. So again, really common in the salmon world, but really hasn't been done very much for inland fisheries, particularly for cutthroat trout. So when Jeff started this work, he didn't even know if it would work, if you could get that genetic fingerprint of tributary streams in a system like the Snake. So he did exactly what they do for salmon, except instead of going to rivers, he went to tributaries, 52 different tributaries to the Snake River, and he collected these baseline genetic samples and was able to create that genetic fingerprint. So up in this upper figure, you can see the different tributaries to the main stem river. Those different colors represent the different genetic fingerprints of the different populations. And while he was out there, he also wanted to know more about the tributaries themselves and what might make them important to how much they can contribute to the main stem snake. So he looked at things like connectivity. If there's a barrier in place, is a tributary less likely to actually contribute fish to the main stem Snake River? Whether that barrier was natural or man-made, he collected that kind of information as well. He also looked at groundwater contributions. So if these were mostly spring-fed streams or if they were snowmelt-dominated streams. He looked at things like catchment area. So that's the drainage area. How much area of water is that tributary draining? And is that important to how the contributions of that tributary, how important those are to the main stem snake? And then the last thing he looked at was something called distance to the main stem. And that simply means if a tributary is coming in on the north side, is it more likely to be important to northern sections of the river and less important to southern sections of the river? So how close is that tributary to where the genetic sample from the main stem was taken? And then once he collected that information, he went out to the main stem of the river. He collected genetic samples from cutthroat trout in the main stem of the Snake River, and he could assign those back to those individual tributary streams. And then he could compare those results both through space, so distance along the length of the river, and through time. Jeff collected his samples in 2020 and 2021. So he looked at the difference between those 2 years and the importance of these different tributaries in those 2 years. And the section of the Snake that Jeff looked at was essentially the river between Jackson Lake and Palisades. He missed a couple sections at the top and a couple sections at the bottom. So if you're familiar with the Snake River, his samples were from Pacific Creek down to West Table. So he didn't do the small section between Jackson Lake Dam and Pacific Creek or down in the whitewater sections of the Snake, just due to the difficulty in catching fish down there. And then the 52 different tributaries that he collected his baseline samples from were all within this section of river as well. So let's jump right into results. Jeff was super successful in this work. He was able to get those genetic fingerprints of all 52 different streams, and they were different enough that he could separate fish based on that genetic fingerprint. And the first thing I thought I'd talk about are these different factors he looked at in relation to the tributaries itself. And these are those 4 different factors on the bottom. Each of these 4 figures represents one of those different factors. The y-axis is the proportional contribution. So the higher up you are on that y-axis, the more likely you are as a tributary to contribute to the main stem of the Snake River. So this first figure, figure A, is connectivity. And unsurprisingly, the more connected you are as a tributary, the more likely you are to contribute to the main stem of the Snake River. Doesn't matter if the barrier is natural or man-made. If there is a barrier on the stream, that stream was less likely to be important to the main stem Snake River cutthroat population. Figure B is distance to the main stem. So remember, this is where that tributary comes into the river compared to where that genetic sample of that fish was taken. So again, not surprisingly, the closer the sample was collected to the tributary, the more likely it was that that tributary was important to that cutthroat trout population in that section of river. Figure C is that catchment area, that drainage area. And again, unsurprisingly, the bigger the drainage area, the more likely that stream was to contribute to Snake River cutthroat in the main stem. And then figure D is that groundwater piece. So he calls this groundwater index. So the higher the groundwater index, the more spring water, the more spring influence occurs in that tributary. And the more spring water, the more likely that tributary was to contribute to Snake River cutthroat. And all of these factors are things that we think we know, and we all would have gone out and said that these are things that are important to the main stem cutthroat population in the Snake River. But it's nice to see the data actually back up what we think we know. So it was nice to see these results from Jeff. Again, not very surprising results, but nice to see in the data. So now let's talk a little bit about this. Let my slides catch up here. Let's talk about this through space and time.
Mr. President? I'm sorry. I hate to interrupt, but before I get the wrong idea in my head and you get this whole thing, may I ask a question? Is he testing fish or is he testing the water in the tributary? And I'm sorry if you said that and I missed it.
Absolutely. Mr. President and Commissioner Masterson, he's testing genetic material. So he's testing the fish.
The fish themselves.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
And that's a great question because we do a lot of work with water and how water is impacting like the bony structures in fish and how that can tell us where they came from. So great question. This is tissue genetic samples, yeah. And we can take fin clips, so you don't actually have to really hurt the fish. You can take a small fin clip and let that fish go.
So he got to fish this whole stretch of the Snake River and he didn't call?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I just wanted to make sure I understood that. Can you take genetic samples of water to find signatures of genetic markers of cutthroat or any other fish?
Yeah, Mr. President and Commissioner Masterson, you can take something called eDNA or environmental DNA. You can filter water and collect genetic material out of the water. You can't do it to this level of detail. You can get to species level. You can't get to like individual, this sort of, more refined genetic fingerprint level, but you can get to species level. Yeah, great questions. Okay, so I'll move on and talk a little bit about how these tributaries contribute through space and through time in the main stem of the snake. So this next figure that you all will see here, it's a little bit busy, so I'm going to walk you through it pretty slowly. Maybe. So there's 6 different panels in this figure. The x-axis, so the bottom, that source population information, those are those 52 individual tributary streams that Jeff collected his samples from. And then the y-axis is proportional contribution. So again, that's how important that tributary is to the main stem cutthroat trout population. And then the individual bars are colored based on that groundwater index. So the darker the bar, the more spring influence in that tributary. The lighter the bar, the more snowmelt dominated that stream is. And the 6 different panels relate to the different sections, main sections of river from north to south. So if you're familiar with the snake, section A is from Pacific to Deadman. Section B is Deadman to Moose. Section C is Moose to Wilson. Section D is Wilson to South Park. Section E is South Park to Astoria. And Section F is Astoria to West Table. So those different sections of river are all just arranged north to south in this figure. And as you can see, the proportional contribution of these different tributary streams changes a lot, both through space. So as you're farther north, different streams are more important to the main stem cutthroat population in northern portions of the river than southern portions of the river. So we can see that change through space. We can also see that there are some tributaries that really don't contribute at all to the main stem Snake River cutthroat trout population, and there's others that are particularly important. And this is really great for us as managers because this helps identify these streams that we know are contributing to this really important cutthroat population that's an important part of the community and the economy in Teton County. And I will put up some stream names here because I think some of you may be familiar with some of these streams, many of you may not. But this is really interesting to us because some of these streams we know really well. We've known for a long time that these are important to Snake River cutthroat populations. One example of that is Lower Bar BC. Lower Bar BC, we've been monitoring since the 60s with a spawning weir. So we monitor that fish population, that spawning population every year. And in fact, those are the fish that have gone into the hatchery. The genetic material from that stream is what has gone into the hatchery and is now our Snake River cutthroat trout brood. And so we know that that's a particularly important spawning stream. We've been monitoring it for a long time. But there are other streams on this list that we've really had no idea were so important to the main stem Snake River population of cutthroat trout. Mosquito Creek's an example, Cabin Creek's an example, Bailey Creek's an example. Most of those spring-fed streams, we know fish spawn in them, but we can't see them. They're muddy in the springtime. We can't actually see fish move into those streams, so we don't know as well as we do some of these more spring-fed streams where we can see fish spawning every spring. And there is one stream that I really want to highlight. This is Fish Creek. Fish Creek really popped out as being by far the most important tributary to the main stem cutthroat trout population in the Snake, and not just in the section where it comes into the Snake. It showed up in every single section of the Snake River. Fish Creek comes into the Snake just below the town of Wilson. And in that section, panel D, you can see it's particularly important. In fact, almost 45% of the genetic samples collected in that section of river were assigned back to Fish Creek. So incredibly important creek as far as our main stem cutthroat trout population. And unfortunately, we have seen declines in the fish population in Fish Creek over the last handful of years. And we didn't see those declines until after Jeff collected his samples. So remember, he was there in 2020 and 2021. We didn't get his results until after we documented these declines. So this is our population estimate data for one section of Fish Creek. The years are on the x-axis, and then our cutthroat trout per mile is on the y-axis. And you can see between 2017 and 2022, we documented pretty significant declines in the population of cutthroat trout in Fish Creek. And so this really gave us cause for concern. We know now that Fish Creek is incredibly important to this cutthroat population in the main stem of the river. We know we've seen these declines over the last few years, and we don't really know what that's going to mean for Snake River cutthroat in the main stem of the Snake River over the long term. And so we're actually going to focus a little this year on this change through time piece. So Jeff, again, collected his samples over a 2-year period, and he saw no difference between 2020 and 2021. But we're a whole fish generation later now. So we want to go back this fall, and we're going to repeat this work that Jeff did in 2020 and 2021 to try and understand how tributary contributions change through time. And particularly when we see a stream like Fish Creek that has declined, Are we seeing those impacts in the Snake, and are we likely to see those impacts in the Snake? Or are other tributaries sort of picking up the slack for that stream that's now a little bit lower than it used to be population-wise? So we'll go out this fall. We will have to collect a few more baseline samples. Luckily, that genetic fingerprint of those tributary streams should not change through time. And so we don't have to repeat all of the genetic work that Jeff did on the tributaries. We're just going to go bolster a few of the populations where he didn't have as many samples. And then we can go out to the main stem this fall. We'll collect genetic samples in that same stretch of river where Jeff collected his samples, and then we'll send them to the Idaho Fish Genetics Lab. And that's the lab that did all the work for Jeff as well. And so they have all the history of all the data, and we can compare what tributaries are contributing to the main stem population now versus in 2020 and 2021. And again, just huge shout out to Jeff. This was certainly his brainchild, and I think he gets a lot of credit for trying to bring this idea of genetic stock identification into inland fisheries. It's worked really well in the Upper Snake. They have tried it other places and it hasn't worked nearly as well. And so we're really lucky to have this tool that's pretty simple tool to use to evaluate our cutthroat trout populations in the Snake and where we should be putting our effort as far as monitoring tributaries. With that, I'll stand for any questions.
I got a couple, Mr. President. So Diana, sorry for the ignorance of these questions that are about to follow, but on page 10, your slide that kind of shows it's sort of the source stream. So it's a results slide, and it has, got your little circles with your different colored fish in them, which I assume is identifying those individual populations from those tributaries. And then in the B figure on it, you got a mixing of those colors in those, I assume, in those tributaries. So my question is, are the cutthroats in the Snake, are they faithful to their tributaries? They go back there to spawn every year? And are these figures indicating that it's primarily the fish from those tributaries that go back, but they drag some others with them? Is that what that figure shows?
Yeah, Mr. President and Commissioner Myatt. Yeah, so the color on those figures is actually the groundwater influence. So the color doesn't necessarily mean anything about the different mixing of genetic fingerprints, I'll say. But what this does show is that these fish are pretty loyal to their stream. If fish were not loyal to their stream and were not going back to the same stream where they were spawned, we wouldn't be able to get identifying fingerprints for each individual stream. It would all just sort of mesh together. And so you wouldn't get to pick out those individual streams. They would all look really similar. And that's what's happened in other places where they've tried this work. So an example is Yellowstone Lake. They've tried to do this work up on Yellowstone, the tributaries to Yellowstone Lake. And their fish appear to not have as much of that drive to go back to their natal stream. And so they get regions that pop out individually, but not individual streams that pop out individually.
That's pretty interesting result
Yeah.
genetically. So, and you said you as department folks are going to continue this work this fall.
Yeah, Mr. President, Commissioner, we are. So we'll go out and do these genetic samples this fall. We are contracting with Jeff to help us with the analysis. We're lucky enough that he just accepted a position at Colorado State as a faculty member. And so we'll be leaning on him pretty heavily for some of the analysis. But the hope is that, we can learn enough by working really closely with him that we can redo this analysis ourselves entirely in-house in the future if we want to. Really, the analysis of the samples is pretty cheap. It's the, putting it all together after we get the genetic results back from the lab that is the harder piece that Jeff will help us with. And then hopefully we'll be able to, do that ourselves in the future.
It's pretty good. Your statement just answered all the remaining questions I had. Thank you.
Mr. President, a follow-up to that. There was a drop-off in population in Fish Creek. Anecdotally, is there a similar drop-off in population in the snake itself? Do you know?
Mr. President and Commissioner Masterson, we have seen a small decline in cutthroat in the Snake River. It's not as significant as if, Fish Creek was the only contributor to the snake. We haven't seen that level of decline. We've seen some small declines, but we don't, at this point, we don't know if that's related to something like Fish Creek or if it's just, a normal trough for that river. We see, just like all, wildlife populations, we see, troughs and
Sure.
boom years. So we're not sure yet, but we have seen some small declines.
Is part of your, or the study, trying to figure out whether that Fish Creek drop is cyclical or if there's some cause, man-made or natural, to it?
Mr. President, Commissioner, absolutely. We were concerned when we first saw those declines in Fish Creek. We're even more concerned now that we've seen Jeff's results because we know how important it is to the main stem. Fish Creek itself is mostly a private fishery. There's very little public access to Fish Creek, but we have monitored it through time because we knew at least it had some importance to the main stem of the river. And for folks who have ever fished Fish Creek or seen photos of the fish on Fish Creek, I mean, they are incredible. It's an incredible fishery. The fish are beautiful. They get really big. And if you were to go out and sample that creek today, you would think it's amazing. You just weren't there 10 years ago. And so there's still a lot of fish in Fish Creek, and we have been spending a fair bit of time trying to better understand what's going on. There's a lot of environmental things happening in Fish Creek right now with water quality and temperatures and things like that. And we have not yet been able to tease out exactly what's going on, but we are concerned and we're investigating. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So it's a great fishery to start with. Are you looking at expanding that to others? The one that immediately comes to mind for me, at least, is it seems like a similar situation would be up around the corner on the Cody side with the Shoshone and all, and the reservoir there, and up above and down below and all that. It seems like it would resemble this quite a bit.
Yeah, Mr. President and Commissioner, I can't speak for the other crews, so I'm not sure if anyone's talking about it. I haven't heard a whole lot of discussion, but I know it's gathering some momentum, since they have tried it on Yellowstone Lake. I think the unique thing about the snake is our number of connected tributaries and the strength of our cutthroat population there, which is, we really don't have that anywhere else in the state. But I do think, in these systems like, above the lake in Cody, I think there is opportunity to use this technique. And once we have the knowledge to do it in-house, I think there's probably going to be a little bit more interest in doing that, so we don't have to sort of sub out that work. Yeah.
Mr. President, if I may. Thank you for this presentation. It is very fascinating. I'm wondering, which tributary of fish did you say that you guys use for brood?
Mr. President, Commissioner, Lower Barbie Sea is the stream that we have been monitoring for a long time, and that is the source, the wild source of the genetics in the snake river cutthroat brood at Auburn.
Very good. So do you see those when you stock those fish from the hatchery? What do you see when they are spawning?
Mr. President, Commissioner, we see those fish pop up, but, generally we're stocking in lakes. We stock them very infrequently in stream. The only place we stock those in stream is sort of those brood fish, generally speaking. And so we typically don't see those mixing that often with our wild population in the main stem of the Snake River. There was a big Yellowstone cutthroat genetics project that included the Snake River. And I don't know if you're familiar with that project or not, but that was through the University of Wyoming as well. And they did identify that sort of genetic signature from our brood of cutthroat trout at Auburn Hatchery, and they saw that pop up a few places, but they were looking more bigger picture genetics. And so those fish just sort of pop out as Snake River cutthroat altogether. They're so similar to our wild population that you can't really tell them apart too much. And they didn't seem to muddy the waters, at least as far as this project goes. Jeff was able to assign 94% of the genetic samples that he took from the main stem. So there's still 6% of the fish he collected that he doesn't know exactly where they came from. So they're either other tributaries or it could be, something like that, although those fish would have popped up as lower Barbie Sea strain. But yeah.
Thank you. I don't think that Commissioner Masterson would be available this fall, but if you did happen to need some help catching fish, I could selflessly carve some time out of my schedule this fall.
Excellent. Thank you, Commissioner. And actually, we would take help. It's a fairly big effort to sample the whole river from Pacific Creek all the way down to West Table. Because we'll try and divide our samples equally among the whole river. So if you want to come out, we'd welcome you on the boat.
Very good. Thank you.
Mr. President, I do have to note that my friend Commissioner Haskell is not actually a member of the Fish Caucus. And there are 3 members of the Fish Caucus who I think actually have priority for that phone call. So not to be picky to my friend Commissioner Haskell.
I was just speaking to your schedule.
Thank you.
We're going to take a 5-minute break. Okay, we're back in business. Welcome.
Good morning, President Jolovich, members of the commission, Director Bruce. My name is Brock Anderson. I'm the land supervisor for Game and Fish. And this morning I have 3 property rights items for your review. Thank you. First item is the old North Gillette Game Warden Station on Knollwood Avenue. In 2025, we repurchased a replacement house or game warden station, making this property eligible for disposal. We listed the property this spring for $250,000 and received 9 offers on the property. These offers were evaluated and scored internally by Game and Fish staff. The highest scoring offer was a cash offer for $300,000 to purchase the property as is. After closing costs and agent commission, we expect to net approximately $290,000. Apologies. Here's a pair of photographs of the property we're discussing. And at this point, I can pause and answer any questions. And the department would recommend the commission vote to approve the sale of the North Gillette Game Warden Station.
Mr. President, just to clarify before I make a motion, you indicated it's listed, marketed. You have a contract in place right now to sell it?
President Jolovich, Commissioner Masterson, yes, we do have a contract in place.
Just wanted to clarify that. Thank you. I would move the approval of the sale of the North Gillette Game Warden Station.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to dispose of the North Game Warden station. Any discussion
We do have a comment.
on that?
But I don't know which one it's for because there's several. Can you ask when Josh is going on? He wants to comment on this one.
What, do we have Josh online? Does he want to come in on this or is there something else on this?
Commissioners, it's Josh Patton, Theodore Roosevelt Conservation Partnership. I was planning on commenting on the Bear River Divide easements.
So we want to wait on that then?
Yes, please.
Okay, all right. So if there's no more discussion, we've got a motion and a second. No more discussion. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion carries.
Thank you. The second item I have for you is the lease renewal of the Bighorn Sheep Center in DuBois. Ooh, let me make sure I'm moving along. The Sheep Center was established in the early 90s between Game and Fish, U.S. Forest Service, the BLM, and the town of DuBois. Last year, they had over 5,000 visitors to the Sheep Center Museum. Game and Fish owns the building and the underlying land, and it was originally on a 10-year lease signed in 2016. We're proposing to renew the lease on the same terms. It's a $0 lease. Game and Fish is responsible for exterior maintenance of the building as well as the major mechanical systems, real estate taxes, and insurance. The association is responsible for operations of the museum, interior maintenance, as well as landscaping and snow and ice removal. A few photographs of the Bighorn Sheep Center. And the department recommends the commission vote to approve the renewal of the Bighorn Sheep Center lease for an additional 10-year period. I can stand for any questions.
Okay.
Mr. President, I have an observation for our legal counsel. The lease is scheduled to be at $0. It seems to me it needs to be some real consideration, even if it's $1. Hearkening back to my property law days. I think we need more than, I don't think we can just say $0. I think it needs to be a nominal fee.
Agree that $1 would be safer. I mean, incremental cost of $1 probably is worth the safety.
It's a text.
I think it's.
It didn't ring.
Did you guys hear it?
Seriously?
I'm sorry?
Would you like to hear my ring?
Phone that went off? No one else heard that?
Yeah, it didn't sound like a train.
It was the good president.
My phone's off.
Yeah, it was the president.
Oh, the president. Oh.
Mr. President, I, Commissioner Master, and I totally agree with that. I think we should make that $1. And so I would entertain, if you're going to make that motion, I think that we should do that.
I would move we amend the terms of the lease to a $1 a year rental fee, Mr. President.
Does it have to be 1 year for the year or for the whole 10 years? Does it have to be per year?
Per year.
Per year, okay. All right. I mean, still only $10.
So is that a motion?
Yes, sir, it is.
We got a motion and a second to continue the agreement with the National Bighorn Sheep Center, but instead of a $0 lease, a $1 lease
$1 per year.
per year,
Yeah.
Per year.
$1 per year for the next 10 years. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, any more discussion? There being none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Thank you. The final item is the addition of 3 in-holding parcels inside the Bear River Divide HMA. On the map, they're shown here in the brighter colors with the BLM checkerboard and the big 3 grazers in more muted tones. The big 3 grazers were put under easements in 2022. The HMA encompasses more than 200,000 acres. It is a permission slip-based hunter management area. Game and Fish issued over 2,000 permission slips in 2025. These landowners have historically been enrolled in the Access Yes walk-in hunting program, and we're looking to convert them into a longer-term agreement. The landowners we're discussing are the Ellis Ranch, Reeseland and Livestock, and Wally Schultes. Combined, they would add 5,000 acres of private ground to this public property. There's a 4th landowner that I should mention, the Faddis family. It's a similar sized parcel. They are agreeable to an easement similar to this. However, their property is going through probate right now, so I'm hoping to bring that to you in 2027. These easements would be 27-year easements. This is to match the 30-year easements that the big 3 grazers signed in 2022 so that everything would be on the same timeline. Total cost for this would be approximately $290,000. These funds would come from the Conservation Stamp Access Fund. And as part of the requirements for using those funds, we did send a letter to the Uinta and Lincoln County Commissioners to notify them of these potential easements. Showing the map one more time with these 3 in holdings brightly shown. And I want to take a quick moment to commend Heather Sterling and Crystal Turley for bringing these landowners to the table. They did some great work on it. And then the department recommends that the commission vote to approve these 27-year term public access easements for a total price of $289,151.90, funded by the Conservation Stamp Access Funds. And I can stand for any questions.
Mr. President, 2 questions to clarify, if I may. The $289,000 total cost, that's over the life of the easement, I assume?
Mr. President, Commissioner Masterson.
Just to be clear.
That is correct.
Okay. And no response from the Lincoln and Uinta County Commissioners, I assume?
Mr. President, Commissioner Masterson, no, I have not received a response.
All right. Thank you. With that, Mr. President, I would move to approve the 27-year term public access easement, total price of $289,151.90, funded by Conservation Stamp Access Funds.
Mr. President, I know we have a public comment, but I will second that.
You have them on, Wayne? You there, Josh?
Yes, thank you, Commissioner. Chair, Commission, Josh Metten, Wyoming Field Manager for the Theodore Roosevelt Conservation Partnership. I'll just be brief. Applaud the Game and Fish Department for their work in improving access with this parcel. And the last time I commented a few weeks back on the Torrington acquisition, having a suite of tools available to address access issues and using that suite of tools is something that's very important to the TRCP and our and sports people. And I think with this example specifically, you're looking at a checkerboarded landscape and finding a good solution to providing access, addressing management concerns within the checkerboard, and just encourage the department to continue using these tools, whether it's an access easement, an acquisition, or even looking or participating in public processes that benefit the public for exchanges and sales as well. Thank you, and I'll stand for any questions.
Okay, thank you very much. It's been moved and seconded. Do we have any more discussion? No more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mike, good now? All right. Well, good morning, Commission President Jolovich, members of the commission, Director Bruce. I'm real excited to give a talk about our hatchery system. So I'm Guy Campbell. I'm the fish culture supervisor. So a little bit about our hatchery system. So a couple things about us is we manage for sport fish management and then also native fish conservation are our two primary our focus for our department. So within our system, we have 10 fish hatcheries and rearing stations. The difference between a hatchery is we also we have spawning fish, we have eggs that we rear up all the way up through the life stages to stock fish out. And then a rearing station, the difference there is we only bring fish in as a transfer and then we stock those fish out. But together, we manage all our entire system together as one statewide system, and then we meet our requests in regards to species, numbers, size, and timing. And we work together with our fish management folks to do this. And what we do is we set a schedule 2 years in advance, so that way we can plan for what the needs are. And then again, since our whole hatchery system statewide, certain hatcheries might be able to fulfill those requests that others can't. And because we have different parameters at each of our hatcheries. Specifically, our goals in our hatchery system is to maintain proper fish health and biosecurity, to create diverse sport fisheries across the state, and then also to maintain that genetic integrity of the brood stock like Diana mentioned earlier, such with the Barbie Cs. So the what and the who make up the fish culture sections. I talked about we have 10 fish hatcheries and rearing stations, also a statewide spawning crew. The map just shows where those locations are across the state. We have hatcheries where we have water. So if we were going to do this a little bit differently and spread them out, we sure would. But it's important that we have water sources and water rights to these in these locations. So that's where our fish hatcheries are. But really the lifeblood, the heartbeat of our fish culture section is our personnel. I feel like we have some of the best personnel that you can find nationally. Very well educated, love what they do, have the passion for the resource. So we have 39 permanent employees, 2 12-month AWACS, 9 summer techs, and we have 1 fantastic year-round volunteer. George, could you come on up? So George didn't know why he was here today. So George Stickerman, he is our volunteer at our Spees hatchery. George has been there for 5.5 years. He has volunteered nearly 2,000 hours of volunteer work at Spees hatchery. He's a retired mechanic or machinist. Yep, machinist. But he helps all through when it comes to landscaping, mowing, taking care of flower beds, fabrication, all sorts of stuff. But he has been such a huge part of the Spees hatchery, and we just wanted to just at least acknowledge all your work for what you're doing. Is again, it's not just the 39 permanent employees, it's folks like you that make a huge difference. So thank you, George.
Thank you.
It's the best job I've ever had. And working with all the people out at the hatchery, talking to people that come through to want to tour. I don't do any tours because I don't know anything about it, but talking to them and then fishermen that come down, I do a lot of fishing and come down the river there and fish. I always have a few hundred extra flies with me that I can hand out. And my dad was a volunteer for for South Dakota Game and Fish back in the 50s, working with game wardens in our part of the state. And I saw it, and come time to retire, I decided that I'd go out and talk to Lars and see if he had an opening there. So it's been great. Best job I've ever had. So thank all of you that keep things running. It's very well appreciated. Thank you.
Thanks again, George. Okay. So moving on from our personnel, we get into our statewide fish production. So we stock each year nearly 8 million fish. This can vary year to year, depending again on fish schedules that we set 2 years in advance. Primarily, it's cold water fish. I know our state's known for what we do, cold water. We're very proud of our fisheries we have statewide. Of this, about 85 to 90% is all reservoir and lake stocking that we do. So again, small streams and rivers, we don't do as much stocking, but we do occasionally do those depending on where the need is. When it comes to cool and warm water, we do bring in roughly about 2.1 million cool and warm water fish for the time being. Here in a couple years, another year and a half, hopefully we're doing all of that internally. But you could see we do have quite the demand on cool and warm water statewide as well. Besides fish production, egg production, we do have 11 captive, and actually now it's 12. We just started a new captive brood and 8 wild brood stocks that we have from statewide. We take 14 million eggs annually. We use those, primary focus is in state, but we also do ship some out of state. And some of those fish that we bring in for cool and warm water is because of the eggs and stuff that we ship out is kind of our trading bait that we use to get some of our cool and warm water fish that we bring in. So we ship to a dozen state agencies and numerous federal hatcheries. Our brood stocks, our captive brood stocks, are known nationally to have that best genetic integrity, that we take care of the broods in the right way. So they're highly sought after. Our first facility I'll briefly talk about is our Auburn hatchery. So just west of Afton. This facility is built in 1941. We produce just under 1 million fish, about 17,000 pounds of fish are produced there. It's known for its Snake River cutthroat brood stock. Also, this facility is very important in our kokanee incubator, incubating kokanee and production. We did find out with a recent study that the fish that come from Auburn hatchery in regards to kokanee stocking and Flaming Gorge, that this facility was the most important on fish that we produced there that we showed that were showing up to the creel. This facility has 2 isolation facilities on hand. What's important about the isolation facilities is we can bring in stuff from the wild, be able to incubate early rear, and not put at risk our facility or our watershed. So these facilities are really important. Our next facility I'll talk about just west of Pinedale is our Boulder Rearing Station, built in 1952. This facility produces about 33,000 pounds of fish. Couple highlights, our fall rainbow broodstock is there. And also our East Fork 3 species facility we have there at the facility as well. This facility also has an isolation facility. So again, this is regionally the southwestern part of Wyoming does a lot of fish stocking, very important for that region. Next is our Clark's Fork Fish Hatchery, built in 1970. And I hate to say this, but this is our newest facility. So it was built in 1970, and it's we haven't had any recent renovations done to it, but this is our most recent one. We produce around 70,000 pounds, so our second largest producer of all our fish production in our state comes from our Clark's Fork hatchery. And our newest brood stock has been our West Virginia brood stock. And we started that there because we are having some issues with bacteria cold water disease, one of the fish health pathogens, kind of affecting our rainbow trout, numerous of our facilities statewide. This particular rainbow trout is bacteria cold water disease resistant. So we've seen some significant results with this brood stock. We're still out right now to do some more testing on the creel. How are these fish showing up in the creel? So far, the results have been really positive. So the work's still out, but last year was the first year we did our spawning of our West Virginia rainbow. The folks there at Clark's Fork did a phenomenal job. We had an eye-up percentage over 90% on spawned fish. Moving on is our Daniel hatchery. So just out of Daniel, Wyoming, just west of Pinedale. So that's built in 1918. So this facility is our second oldest, over 106 years old. This produces about 130,000 fish annually. Our Colorado River cutthroat broodstock is there. But this facility is not is so much important for the number of pounds it produces, but it's highland stocking that we do. So helicopter stocking that we do every year. This is one of the facilities, because of its cold water temperature, it can hold fish back. So that way we can, when we stock fish, we can stock them at about 3.5 to 4 inches that do real well in our helicopter stocking tanks, and we have good results. So this is our Daniel facility. And then moving on, next is our DuBois hatchery, built in 1940, produces nearly 25,000 pounds. This facility has a partial recirculating system, so water that we use from one unit, we use in a unit below again, and then it can be pumped back up. So at some level, we partially recirculate our system there. This is a very important cutthroat facility now. So previously, we had an iron filtration system that I know many of you folks had seen before. Remove the iron. We were having some issues, and the equipment was aging. We put a new infiltration gallery in on the CM Ranch, and then we put in a new system with a new filtration system that our folks at DuBois, our personnel, installed along with help in the region. And now we have this important cutthroat facility where we're seeing real good results on our fisheries, on fish stocked out of this facility. So this now utilizes surface water. So we're kind of going full circle. When we started these facilities, we went to surface water, didn't have the technology to use to be able to use surface water again. And it was a bummer because the fish produced they were so fantastic looking. This facility now produces some of the nicest looking fish that we have in our whole state that come out of our hatcheries. Next is our Spies hatchery. It's our largest, built in 1957. This annually produces about 260,000 pounds. We have produced up to 300,000 pounds, but we found the sweet spot right now where we feel real comfortable on what we're doing on fish schedule. About 260,000, lots of catchables get produced from this facility. A lot of fish, when it comes to distribution, happens out of this. This is a large facility that goes to many of the reservoirs across the state. This facility has 2 isolation facilities. And also, this is going to be our future home for our new cool and warm water facility that lots of work's being done at it as we speak. Moving on, local hatcheries, our Story hatchery, which this is our oldest fish hatchery we have. This has 5 captive brood stocks: brook trout, brown trout, lake trout, Eagle Lake rainbows. And then it's home to the only golden trout brood stock in the nation. This is a very important statewide incubator for incubating eggs. And then we send eggs all across the nation from this incubator. Also, this is really important in public outreach as we receive over 20,000 visitors each year. 10 Sleep hatchery, just over the Bighorns, built in 1939. We produce about 25,000 pounds of fish, home to the Yellowstone cutthroat broodstock. This is a facility, if you're going to do it right, when it comes to money and doing all the processes of rearing the fish, filtering any of the solids out from the bottom side, and then also UV treating the water before it goes into the next rearing unit. This is it. So this facility is one of our nicest facilities and also probably one of the nicest statewide facilities nationally. This also has an important statewide incubator, especially since we have the Yellowstone cutthroat right there, the Bear River cutthroat brood that's close that I'll talk about shortly. And then also it rears a lot of kokanee captive brood stocks from our tillet rearing station. And next is the tillet rearing station. So that was built in 1958, produces about 36,000 pounds each year, home to our kokanee captive brood stock. At one time, it was the only kokanee captive brood stock that we had nationally. Since then, we've worked with the states of Colorado and Idaho for them to help build their own kokanee captive brood using some of the methods that our folks worked on there at the facility. This hatchery has an isolation facility as well. And one thing that's really unique about this facility is it does sit on it's a lease. It's leased property that we have up there. Next is our wigwam rearing station, built in 1951. This is our third largest production facility that we have, around 45,000 pounds, home to the Bear River cutthroat broodstock. And we do see from this facility some of our best return rates to our fisheries statewide. So we do know that the water quality that's produced here on these fish, and then also the culture practices that are being done, are definitely making an impact on our resource. So besides our hatcheries, we have a spawning crew. Chris Holmes leads this group. Then he has one temporary that he has. So they're stationed at a Pinedale, responsible for our wild brood stock, and that could be investigation, trapping, and spawning. And this can be cold water fish, and now soon to be some cool and warm water investigations as well. One really important program he's been working on over the last few years with our folks from our Fish Health Lab is our cryopreservation program. So we're actually freezing milt that we collect from the wild and some of our cutthroat brood stocks that we have and kokanee. And then we're actually bringing those down to Laramie and holding them into storage. We're doing the same thing with all our captive brood stocks at our hatcheries. So similar that we've seen in cattle, I know they've done it with dogs as well. We're doing the same thing right now with our fish. And this is long-term a protection for what we have. If we find out we have a certain wild source that comes up with a pathogen that we didn't want, we could go back and spawn to this frozen milt. We've actually unthawed milt that's been frozen for over a year, and it actually had the same success on egg fertilization as fish that were spawning the same day of. So big props to those and working on this important project. And also they're in charge of doing our coordinating our high alpine lake stocking as well. So lots of stuff, wears lots of different hats. Next is our statewide distribution. This is spearheaded by Travis Trimble, who's here, our assistant fish culture supervisor. And he coordinates both the in-state and out-of-state fish stocking. There's a fleet of 3 tandem axle trucks, 5 650 gallon tanks that we have on trucks. We have one 750 gallon triple trailer and one 900 gallon quad tank. For all of them combined, they travel about 135,000 miles a year. So a lot of miles. Big props to Travis. He tries to look at ways we can reduce travel times, combine loads, do it the most efficient way we can. Also, besides this, Travis leads all of our boarding operations that come in. Big thanks to Commissioner Bell and Haskell for your assistance here a couple weeks ago with that. Next, just talk a little bit about some section efficiencies. So one thing we really look is really important in our fish culture section is to try to do the most we can with the dollar. So when it comes to efficiencies, so our facilities are maintained by our hatchery personnel. We don't have maintenance folks hired in. So we're doing all the plowing, grading, weed, insect spraying. We're doing the painting, all the work to our specialized equipment, changing oils and all that kind of stuff. We try to do what we can. Now, if a task is too big, we will look for outside help, but we try to train our personnel into doing that at each of our facilities. Another thing we try to do too, Travis and I, is we work alongside our personnel when we develop designs for any renovation or construction projects. Fish culture and aquaculture is limited when it comes to, how many people do this nationally. So again, I feel like we have a very strong core group of folks that understand our systems well. So we're the first ones that try to sit down and try to design, what do we want? What would work with the conditions we have? Together we collectively work, and then we work with our division administration before we take it out to our engineers. And that way we can cut down on costs on what that looks like when we hire a consultant from outside. Next, another project that many of you are familiar with that we saved a lot of money on was at Du Bois, the water treatment, where Brad Hughes, Scott, and Caitlin that are up there at Du Bois did a fantastic job, and we saved about $400,000 for the department. We bought the equipment, and they all put it in. And again, hats off to those folks. Again, us folks are fish culturists. And, we've learned this on the side. So big props to that. Another project, we're recently saving some big monies at Auburn Hatchery. So we had an isolation facility that I leaned on the expertise of a couple builders on site that made it into 2. So that way we have a little more flexibility when bringing in wild eggs or fish into this facility. And then also we're setting up our treatment on our effluent that's coming out of our isolations. And we saved, of this 180, about 100,000 by our folks building our own building and putting that up. So right now that should be done by the end of the month. But in total, we've saved about $180,000 there. And then another project, Hunter, would you stand up real quick? So Hunter Birmingham is our senior culturist, one of our senior culturists at Spees Hatchery. And also he's actually going to be the new hatchery superintendent, our Clark's Fork Hatchery. But he has spearheaded a couple projects, him and the hatchery manager, Lars, and Sean McColpin there at Spees, to save the department some money. Thank you. Thanks, Hunter. For one, we had a raceway cover project. So this is where the cool warm water facility is going to be situated. We saved about $60,000 by tearing these down ourselves. Big props to our Habitat and Access folks that were helping from the Sheridan and Lander region on this project as well, and the Casper. But we saved $60,000 by the removal of those, and we're going to be able to use one of these raceway covers at our Clark's Fork to protect the broodstock. And a couple of these raceway covers, I think Habitat and Access is going to be able to reuse for some storage of some equipment statewide. Another project that recently just happened at Spees Hatchery, where our effluent goes, it was flowing into Jessica's Pond. We had an issue with New Zealand mud snails. So we needed to run 265 foot of 24-inch pipe from our settling pond over our effluent out to the North Platte, with help from the Habitat and Access crew in the Casper region. We were able to install this pipe. So that project saved around $80,000. So besides that, though, we do have some challenges ahead of ourselves. Again, our hatchery system, we have the largest amount of buildings for our, when it comes to sections statewide. So we do have some aging infrastructure. I mentioned that the age of a lot of our facilities. So we do have stuff that is wearing down. The other challenge we have is fish health. So we have some open water supplies that haven't been tackled at some of our facilities. We still have some pathogens of concern that are kind of starting to find their way into the state of Wyoming that we didn't have before. We've been fortunate being a headwater state where we didn't have them. We're seeing those now, especially in our wild waters. So also, when it comes to challenges, biosecurity protection. Just again, when these facilities were originally built, that thought wasn't there. It was to get water to the fish, but now we're trying to see how can we cover and protect our facilities. So same thing, we got pathogens there, and then we have aquatic invasive species. So in regards to the aging infrastructure, our average age of each facility right now is 81 years old. So of the 10 combined, that's where we're at. So we have rearing units that need replaced. We have buildings that need renovated. We've been working on all of these things as we can. And we also have some residential housing that still needs to meet codes and standards that we're fixing as we go. So you can see with some of the pictures, our folks are fish culturists, but I think they've done what they can, the best they can to try to fix these and make do with many of these projects that we have. And then fish health, our big issues right now is we have open water sources. We have open water sources at our Story hatchery, our Boulder rearing station, Daniel hatchery, and our Auburn hatchery. And what can happen here is if we go in and test these facilities and we have fish test positive, when we have a positive testing from our primary water source, that these hatcheries could be shut down depending on what the pathogen of concern could be. And that could be a complete shutdown, or it could be a partial shutdown to be able to try to rectify the problem. And, right now our current pathogens of concerns are whirling disease, bacterial cold water disease. We see it and we've learned to manage it, and we're figuring ways that we can be more efficient with it. Bacterial kidney disease has been one that's hitting us hard here in Wyoming recently. Enteric redmouth, and then gill lice are a couple that we have ran into. Gill lice, we had an issue at Boulder a few years back before we did a renovation on the outflow of the water there. What really concerns us, though, is some other pathogens and concerns such as IHNV or some other viruses that could come into our state, which would shut our hatcheries completely down. So in regards to biosecurity, we've done some work trying to protect our facilities. The first picture up in that upper left-hand is at Clark's Fork Hatchery, where we actually have our discharge water going out this controlled structure. If the Clark's Fork River rises, we can then send that water up above from the higher outflow, and then that way we can protect our facility so we don't have fish coming back into our keyways below our raceways. We also have been looking at ways to reduce predation. So the lower column there with that green light, we actually installed a predation layer, predation laser that actually has reduced our amount of predation we've had in some of our rearing units up to 20%. We went from a facility where we're always short because we were getting hit with all different birds to now we had overages on all of our rearing units where we're like, okay, let's go back in to find out what our survival rates are because the laser's been so effective. Concerns we have, though, New Zealand mud snails. Again, they're knocking at the door of many of our hatcheries, and zebra mussels are something we're really concerned about. And raccoons, that's another one. One of those critters that's going into the river and then ended up sometimes in our raceways if they're unprotected or covered. So I guess the gloom and doom part of my presentation is we do have 3 projects ahead that we do need to address. So first of all, at our Story hatchery, we have an open water source, and we do have some raceways that are there that have been crumbling that need to be done. And we did find one of these pathogens that concerned. RSAL showed up in our Eagle Lake rainbow brood stock this last winter. We're working on trying to rectify and fixing that issue right now. But long term, we're going to need, to get this facility, the water treatment done, and then protection, and get our raceways taken care of. So this project's going to be probably in about the $4 million range. Another project that we have, again, that's in the holster down the road here, that has an open water source is our Boulder rearing station. And again, this facility, lots of aging infrastructure where the raceways are just physically crumbling every day that, that we're trying to work on to try to fix, but it's just at the age of, beyond repair. This project's going to be, we just got the design complete through engineering, and this project's estimated at about 8.6 million. And then the last project that we have, another open water sources at our Daniel hatchery, where we have this project here is a little bit smaller on the scale, but we need to protect that water source coming in, and a good chunk of that is to bring our 3-phase power in from the highway to the facility. So that project's estimated at about $2 million. So don't mean to leave you with some of the doom and gloom, but I also try to be real. that these are things that we need to tackle in the future.
Mr. President, so the big three was a lot of money, big amount of money.
Yeah.
But do you have a complete facilities assessment across all the hatcheries as to what the outstanding major maintenance ticket would be?
Commissioner President Jolovich, Commissioner Mai. So when it comes to the most important, or I guess what I would say, the immediate needs, we do have right now what we're calling like our 8-year plan. And yes, so we have it for that. Now, going through all the hatchery facilities, a complete walkthrough, Scott Coffrin did a lot of work and assessed a lot of our buildings. So we do have some of that information. We don't have it all compiled together all the way, but I know we have it in different pieces right now.
Mr. President, do you have a ballparker for what that is?
I'll step in just a little, and Guy can sure provide details, but there's just a real need to prioritize, as you say, and Guy and company have done a fantastic job with that. And we have a ballpark $35 million of real high priority projects that we think ought to be completed in about the next 8 years. In addition, well, not necessarily in addition to Boulder rearing is on that $35 million list, as is the story.
Yep, all three
of those make up a portion of that 35 million, but that's in addition to our annual maintenance budget and our M&O that'll take care of a lot of the patching of concrete and some of those things, asphalt roofs on houses, kitchen renovations, things like that. That price tag is about 35 million over the next 8 years.
Big number. Mr. President, so these three list the open water sources with the corresponding risks. How many of the remaining hatcheries are they all open water source? Aside from Dubois, I guess.
Commissioner President Jolovich, Commissioner Mai. No, so these three facilities, and the only one we have left besides is our Auburn hatchery, and it's up on the hill above the facility. And it's tricky how the water's collected and how to put some kind of cover. That water source in particular, I think we're going to be able to do that in the less than hundreds of thousands. We just got to find out the right way to do it, so that way we don't have the trees and everything else falling on it. But these are the three big ones. Several of the other ones were tackled years ago, right before 2010. Wigwam, 10 Sleep, Spies, a lot of these facilities were tackled at that point. Dubois, because of like whirling disease concerns. So these are the three big ones.
So last question then, you brought up that timeline. I was debating about whether to ask about it, but wasn't there a pretty significant amount of state funding that went into that, like state general fund or some other reserve account funding or something?
Yeah, and I came into the department right about that time frame when we had that approved, but those funds were approved through the legislature. Yeah.
Mr. President, thank you. Guy, I'm always impressed with the work that the fish culture people do, and especially not only the quality of the fish you produce, but the amount that you have saved by doing the do-it-yourself work and the repair work at those hatcheries is just staggering. And so please express my appreciation to everybody there. It's remarkable, the work you do with some crumbling resources, but you never say die, and figure out a way to get it done, and it's noticed and appreciated.
Thank you.
Do I understand correctly that fish will be transferred in some circumstances from a hatchery to a rearing station? So we're internally transferring from a hatchery to a rearing station in the state. Is that right?
Yeah. Commission President Jolovich, Commissioner Masterson, that's absolutely correct. So that's where when it comes to our facilities, about having it right, having protected water sources at our facilities is absolutely critical. Because if we do have a facility that comes up positive, and then say those fish were transferred to another station, now we're putting at risk, one to several facilities for sure. And, the way our system's set up, only having 10 hatcheries statewide, we're limited on what we have water-wise and space-wise. So, a number of states that are the similar size as ours may have 25 to even 70 hatcheries, where we got 10. And that's where we're just doing our best to try to manage with what we have.
Thank you. Will Spees be able to continue to produce fish at its current rate during the construction of the new facility?
Yeah, yes, actually, there will be no change in production for cold water fish. And again, that's been the flag. I think that, I feel like we've done a very good job on with help of our management to decide on what those levels are, but there will be no reduction in cold water production.
Thank you. The third question, the Saratoga National Fish Hatchery, is there any, I'm just wondering what relationship, if any, does the fish culture section have? Do you work with them? Do you associate with them, coordinate with them? Can you comment on that?
Yeah. Commission President Jolovich, Commissioner Masterson, actually, we have a really good working relationship to the point where it's almost like you feel like it's one of our hatcheries in our system. The new project leader there, Matt Whip, him and I work together nationally on cold water fish culture courses together. Also, we work together on they call us and ask us, are there any needs between Saratoga and even Jackson? And recently we've talked to them, about potential kokanee needs, or when it comes down to it is some Colorado River cutthroat potential, a different type of brood stock or whatever. But yeah, we do coordinate with them. We also we do have a grant every year where we do pick up some fish from their facility, and we stock those fish. And could be a number of waters, depending on if there's a project that needs some fish that our own hatchery section's unable to produce, or the timing's just right. Anytime that facility has extra fish, which does happen, we're the first phone call to come down there, and a lot of times we'll go pick up fish from them and stock them in waters that are across the state.
Thank you. A final question, if I may, Mr. President. The two gentlemen you brought with you today, they're both working at Spees, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And Spees, I think, is near Casper, isn't it? Okay,
Yeah.
so it's not in Gillette, right?
Yeah.
Okay, all right. Just wanted to clarify that. Thank you, and thank you, gentlemen, for coming. Thank you for indulging me, Mr. President.
Okay.
Mr. President, if I may, Guy, thank you for this presentation. I was kind of blown away by the numbers. I was just looking at the first four hatcheries that you spoke of: Auburn, Boulder, Clarks Fork, and Daniel. And over their lifespans, adding up the amount of fish that have been produced there, 127,930,000 fish of just those four hatcheries over their lifespan. That speaks volumes for this section, that also over that time you've been able to keep out any AIS and prevent big outbreaks. So I want to commend you and applaud you guys for the work that you do there. That is tremendous.
Thank you.
And like Commissioner Masterson said, with aging infrastructure, that just shows the heart of the people in this department. The guys that are wearing the red shirts are absolutely here because they care about the resource. And just thank you so much for caring so much about this resource and doing the fabulous work that you do. And yeah, I don't want to speak for my fellow commissioners, but I don't think you would hesitate to find any support in upgrading this infrastructure from this body. So thank you.
Well, thank you. And Commission President Jolovich and Commissioner Haskell, I think you hit it right on the head. We've been just so fortunate to have folks with so much passion. And I know when I took my position that I'm in right now, the culture supervisor, is collectively about 8 years ago, when it came to the biosecurity risks or allowing an AIS to get into our facilities. Collectively, we work together on, let's identify where those risks are at our facility, and within what we could budget-wise, let's try to tackle those items. So we started from at the very end of the facilities, made sure we had drop and try not to allow things to come in. And we've been kind of working our way back up over the years, but I really appreciate those comments and appreciate that for sure. Thanks. Okay, thank you.
Good morning. Let's see if it's going here. Few things. Yeah, looks good. You can go back a slide. Good morning, Mr. President, members of the commission, Director Bruce. I'm Will Schultz. I supervise our habitat protection program. And I know we're a little behind time, but I'll try to get through this and get us back on track. So I wanted to take a moment and first of all, perhaps inform you a little about the Habitat Protection Program. I think yesterday during the awards presentation, Director Bruce in her director's office presentation indicated that habitat protection is nested in the governor's or the director's office. And so I wanted to show the layout here of the organizational chart. And so Habitat Protection Program, or HPP as we affectionately refer to it, is nested under Deputy Director Jeff Davis. And as you can see, I must be a very challenging individual to supervise because compared to Deputy Director Wiltanger, who has 5 division chiefs, Deputy Davis only has 1. So you could come away with it from that perspective as well. But I want to talk about the Habitat Protection Program team. And it consists of, we have 5 habitat protection biologists. Ross Crandall, who is located in Pinedale and covers our Green River, Jackson, and Pinedale regions. He's been with the team about 5 years. Angelique Curtis, who is in Cheyenne and covers our Lander and Casper regions. She's been with the department for 2 years. Chris Hinkle, also in Cheyenne, who you met yesterday, covers our Cody and Sheridan regions from Cheyenne. And Lauren Troop, who's located in Laramie, has been with the department about 5 years and covers essentially the Laramie region. And then our latest addition to the team is Time Dalaki in Cheyenne, and she supports the team as a whole. A little about the folks on this team. The job that they have is a tough job. They spend days reading reports, pouring through data, going to a lot of meetings. When they do get a chance to go to the field, it's usually to look at a potential development and a loss of habitat. But the professionalism and the dedication that they show to that charge that they have is very inspiring. So what do we do at HPP? We provide the counties, the state agents and federal agencies, as well as industry with recommendations on how to avoid, minimize, mitigate impacts from development. How do we do that? Our sister agencies, project proponents, other counties, federal agencies provide and forward to us over 500 projects a year to review and provide back comment. That's how we do it. We also are charged with ensuring compliance with the governor's executive orders for sage grouse, core area protection, and mule deer and antelope migration corridor protection. So on to what I came here to talk about, wind energy development and wildlife. And so I want to take kind of a look at this from a national perspective and provide you with a layout of where our wind energy resources in the continental U.S. Are located. And as you can see, Wyoming kind of lies on the western edge of that Midwestern higher potential for wind. So on this map, those warmer temperature or the warmer colors indicate the better wind energy potential, blue being actually, you probably can't read the boxes, but it calls it as superb, followed by red with outstanding. And so when you look at the map, you can start to see we've got some of those warmer colors located, whereas the Midwest tends to have more consistent but lower potential. So we're going to dig in here a little bit more to the state of Wyoming with regard to where that resource is located. Again, back to those warmer colors, the superb being the blue and red being outstanding. You can see the Laramie Range and areas into the Shirley Basin and so forth have a really high potential there. Also wanted to illustrate on this map where the major transmission lines are within the state. And that has a lot to do with the determination of where developers look to site energy. Because in most cases, they're looking at providing this energy out to an out-of-state market, and typically to the west. So where is our wind energy developments located in the state? Here's a map that's showing essentially the location of about 729 turbines at 16 facilities, and they're generating a little over 2,000 megawatts. And as you can see, if I go back to that last page, that aligns fairly well with both the wind energy potential as well as where we have transmission available. So I'm going to spend a couple minutes. Got a couple really boring slides to show you, but they're very important because in our world, it's the fine print that matters. And what I'm sharing with you here is our Wyoming DEQ Industrial Siting Council's rules. And in Chapter 1, it talks about some of the requirements for applicants that want to provide a project to the Industrial Siting Council for permitting. And one of the things that they call out in here is they want to see a recent survey of threatened and endangered species, as well as essentially those species identified in our state Wildlife Action Plan, or SWAP, and determine what species may be impacted at these sites. And so I'm going to talk a little more what we do with those that direction, but this is the direction to the applicants that calls out that level of consultation with the department. And also it goes on to talk about evaluations of potential impacts to terrestrial and aquatic wildlife and any plans that there may be or proposals to alleviate those impacts. And further, it goes on to talk about, providing a description of any mitigating measures to alleviate adverse environmental impacts. There we go. So I'm going to walk you through the next 5 steps that they're somewhat milestones of what we think about as we walk through the process with a developer for a wind energy facility. But I would say that much of this is a continuous process with little intermediate pauses in between. And what we use to help guide the HPP team is our guidelines for wind and solar energy development that was approved by the commission back in 21. That replaced our wind. We had a wind only, not solar, guidelines that was developed and approved back in 2010. And as technology has moved forward with solar, we needed to update that to have some guidance to include for solar as well. And so even though we're trying to provide guidance for both of these renewable projects in the same document, they are uniquely different. So the first step in this is consultation with the project proponent. And where this comes in is hopefully they come and they reach out to us and want to move forward with understanding what kind of impacts or what kind of wildlife resources may be in an area that they're proposing to develop. And so when they do that, we say, hey, that'd be great. Please invite all of the landowners that are affected by this project. And the reason we do that is we want to be very transparent with what our concerns may be, as well as making sure that they're good with having consultants for the project proponent, hiking all over their place and doing surveys and looking for various species. And so that's a very integral part. There's been several times where they thought that was optional. And we're like, no, we're gonna, let's do this again. Please invite your landowners. They don't necessarily have to attend, and many of them don't, but those that do, I think, really appreciate that opportunity to see exactly what it is that we're asking from these developers. From there, it goes to, they provide us a map. We take a look at that. We do kind of a desktop audit of what potentially might be impacted. And then we provide some recommendations for those pre-construction surveys that are asked for by industrial sightings. And we generally ask for 2 years to take out a little bit of environmental variability there. So that's how we kind of kick this process off with developers. Step 2, we continue this dialogue over that 2-year period where they're collecting data and so forth. And by then, we normally have a pretty good idea about what kind of resources may be impacted on there. And also start working on developing a monitoring plan. And this monitoring plan is something that is going to be pretty instrumental moving forward for that project to essentially measure impacts and so forth against. But also it includes various things such as it'll also include we expect it'll include all of that pre-construction data that they develop, as well as those commitments to avoidance, minimization, and mitigation for those potential impacts or adverse effects. And so it also lays out a roadmap with wind. We generally recommend 3 years of post-construction mortality monitoring to see if that's how we measure if there is an adverse effect. Along those lines, there's also a component of the monitoring plan that deals with adaptive management. So if we do see something that's impactful, how are we going to deal with that? What kind of changes could be done? And it also outlines essentially the directions for developing a TAC or Technical Advisory Committee. And that is made up of the project proponent, the department, the landowners, as well as in some cases, we have U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service be partners on that. And they all meet annually once that project's in production phase and review the results of the post-construction monitoring data and determine if any actions are needed. So about at this point where they haven't built anything yet, but they're at the end of gathering all of their data. They're going to, generally the project proponent is going to apply for or submit their application to the Industrial Sightings Council. A lot of times they do not have all of their surveys done. It may be in the summertime of that second year that they're completing surveys. And so generally, we will end up in a situation where we don't have that monitoring plan finished yet because they haven't completed all of their surveys. We haven't finalized turbine layout with them and tried to avoid any areas of concern. And so usually we provide as a recommendation to the Industrial Sightings Council condition of the permit to ensure that the monitoring plan has been finalized before they can start construction. And so that's in the 4 years I've been in this role, and we've walked through several wind facilities going to industrial sightings. I believe every single one of those, we did not have a monitoring plan completed with them prior to them applying. I wanted to finally here on the fifth step is talk about that post-construction monitoring. What does that look like? What does that mean? And if you're not familiar with it, generally the project proponent, once they're in production, will hire a consultant and they'll have a team of biologists that'll go out and either bi-monthly or monthly complete surveys underneath the turbines and look for dead birds and bats. And collect those, identify those, and through, they'll take that information from what they collect and they plug that into a model that's been developed that also looks at searcher efficiency. They do trials to determine one person's ability to spot a dead bat can be completely different from the next person. And so they actually go to that individual level of looking at how well they are able to do that. In some cases, dogs are used for these searches, and they are very, very efficient. And so they bring that information, they plug it into their models, and they come up with estimates for what kind of mortality occurred on an annual basis. That information is then brought to the TAC and discussed and determined if, is there something wrong with the monitoring? Maybe they needed to tighten things up. In some cases, we have a lot of the wind facilities have issues with predation. They have what's called a carcass persistence trial, where they will lay out carcasses just to determine how long they persist on the landscape. And that as a variable goes into that model that I talked about that estimates like how many of the dead birds and bats disappeared before the searchers came out. So to do their survey. So adaptive management. So if there is a situation, and we'll talk a little bit more about what may trigger adaptive management, but there's some routes to go that are generally included in their monitoring plans. Potentially there could be more monitoring or research recommended and completed if they felt that maybe the methodology wasn't provided an accurate estimate. And so that would be the first thing you would check is, did we do the monitoring effectively or not? If we have, and that is the case, then there's certainly some operational changes and that could be put in place. And anytime as you can well imagine, when those blades aren't spinning, they're not generating electrons, and that means they're not generating revenue as well. So those things are very important to the developers of wind energy projects. A couple of things I wanted to mention is there's some technologies that have really advanced a lot in the last few years. besides curtailment. And when I talk about curtailment, I can talk about manned curtailment where they actually have observers that are watching, looking for a bird entering, like a raptor entering the field of wind turbines, and they'll manually shut those down. Another option, and there's a system that's developed down in Colorado called Identiflight that uses camera technology. And that's what you see up there on the right-hand side of the screen is some of that technology and how it through cameras identifies those birds, and it can do very many different species and shut down those turbines as that bird is flying through the turbine array. Again, it's one of those things that every time those blades are shut down, they're not producing electrons. And a lot of the producers have contracts in place that says they have to have so much energy being produced. So it's something that's implementing those technologies, and we recommend that. Sometimes that's something that they're weighing out. And also sonic deterrents. There's getting to be, as I said, the technology is advancing very rapidly with things like things to deter bats from entering into fields that are sonic. And I think many of you have heard about a research project that's going on north of Glen Rock at the Top of the World facility where they've painted one blade on a turbine black because of some of the there's evidence to support that it could be a good way to make those more visible to some of the raptor species. So that may be something to have for a recommendation as well in the future.
Well, what are your thoughts on that one blade painted? What do you have anything?
So we, on the front end of that, we're pretty involved with working with the researchers but they've kind of taken it from here. But it is, I haven't seen the data from here. In Europe, it definitely has some significant improvement in reducing mortalities. So, and so let's take a minute and talk about fatalities. Given the estimates that we've worked with in the last 5 years, here's an estimate of what we're seeing for fatalities across the state of Wyoming with these different classes of birds. And that's the way that they're essentially by the industry and so forth really looked at. So just leave those there. And what we have done is we've set some thresholds or benchmarks for these mortality limits. And those are based off of looking at what is being observed at other facilities within, we tend to use the Fish and Wildlife Service regions. And so on this graph here, and I'll just ask you to pay attention to the blue lines and the blue bars. And this represents large bird and raptor mortality per megawatt here in Wyoming. This is just Wyoming facilities, but we're looking at comparing it to the regional mortality rates per megawatt. And as you can see, the little dots up there at 1.4, that's the line for the Northern Prairie region, and the more barred line at 0.8 is the mortality for the I think what is it? I can't even. Boy, it's tough. Thank you. It's tough getting old. Thank you, Commissioner. Thank you very much. Those might be my glasses up there. So. I didn't prepare a slide for the small bird, but it's very similar. What we're seeing with bird mortalities is within what we believe is an acceptable range based on what we're seeing at other facilities in the regions and as well as the state. Bats, we're looking at, so we've got the 75th percentile and for the Mountain Prairie region. And these are Wyoming facilities, and the estimated bat mortality from those. The ones that have the asterisk on top, when we determined there was an issue in an exceedance of what we would like to see in that kind of expected level of mortality, working with that company, not only at that facility, but at other facilities they have, essentially voluntarily moved forward with curtailment during the fall migration period. So at night, and then also feathering their blades. A lot of the mortality for bats and birds actually happens at very low wind speeds because they're flying around, right? And they're not paying attention to those blades. And so those are the kind of commitments that we have seen from some of the energy facilities in the state to address these things when we do see these concern points. The other two facilities that have those higher bars that exceed that line, we're in the midst of working with them to see if we can't come up with a plan to move forward with. Some other species that I think you might have some questions about would be sage grouse, for example, right? And per the executive order, the governor's executive order on sage grouse core area protection, commercial wind and solar developments are not recommended in the core population areas. And also talks about reevaluating that as new data and research comes forward. To date, that has not changed. So within core, those areas are essentially not considered for development, at least by the state. We do have proponents that will come forward with wondering if there is a way to move forward. Pronghorn. Several years ago, we had a situation where we had a developer who wanted to move forward with a project on private lands in the Shirley Basin. At that time, we did not have an idea. What are going to be the impacts, given that most of the area that they wanted to site this was crucial range for pronghorn. And our knowledge of this was essentially unknown. And so Director Bruce was in my position at that time, and she worked very diligently to work with those several project proponents to fund research, to look into answering this question: what are the impacts from the development? And it's resulted in several papers. There's some indication there may be at certain scales with migration through those. I think it's similar to what we see potentially with oil and gas, where a little more expedition when expedited traveling through those areas. However, this latest paper really looked across everything and appeared that there was no evidence of avoidance for development of wind energy. Certainly along those lines, there is a loss of habitat, correct? With the fragmentation and so forth. But as far as an actual avoidance of that type of development, it did not appear. Mule deer, which we all know have a higher fidelity to the areas that they use for wintering as well as fawning. We've yet to be able to answer that question. About 14 years ago, a project was started with the proposed Sierra Madre or Chokecherry Sierra Madre wind farm south of Rollins. And the commission here funded several years of collaring those animals to gather pre-construction data to build that pre-construction. And now that they're entering into the construction phase, they were going to continue to have collared animals throughout that process to look at potential impacts. However, we're at a point where it's going to be multiple years of development and or construction, and then it'll go into production. And so there's a thought, we didn't know it was going to take this long to get to the construction phase, or we wouldn't have started so soon with developing or collecting that data. And this has been a mixed effort that the commission has supported, BLM. I think there's some other partners in there that have helped keep those collars out there. But we've got a great data set to come back after construction and put collars out there once more and look at how those animals are using that. In the interim, through the support of various NGOs and some funds, the department has taken a look at a smaller scale than the Chokecherry Sierra Madre with the Rock Creek wind facility near Arlington, where there is overlap with where they have developed turbines. And what we're able to do here is leverage some collar data that we had from studies a couple of years ago. And now that it's developed, we plan on putting collars out there. And so having a smaller scale project to look at and potential how the behavior or use is changing. And then this larger, hopefully in the next decade, we'll have the Chokecherry data wrapped up. That's what I've got for you. I'm sure there might be a question or two, and I will stand for those.
Mr. President, Will, thank you for that. I was wondering if you could share that, if we could get that, at least if I could get that Wallace et al. In review analysis indicating no avoidance. I'm curious about, those no avoidance is an interesting statement to me because those facilities out there are vast. And so what does no avoidance mean is they have to go, are they supposed to go 20 miles around or, I'm curious about that. Of course, they're going to move through the area. I'm just curious to read that.
Mr. President, Commissioner Bell, yeah, and I will tell you that statement of no avoidance, that was me generalizing. That is not the actual title of the paper that will be coming out, but we will certainly make that available when we get eyes on it.
Thank you. And I'd echo that. When it does come out, I'd like to see a copy of it and maybe even if you have it, the Milligan from 2023. If you could forward that, that would be something to read in the evening. I noticed on the guidelines that the department has issued for wind and solar, they're dated January 28, 2021. And as you noted a few times, technology has come a long way. Is there an ongoing or a thought to update those guidelines?
Mr. President, Commissioner Masterson, yes, there is. There's actually in the document itself direction to us to review those at 5-year intervals.
Okay.
The HPP team started this winter. We went through and started making some edits. We're going to continue that next month when we get together for a team meeting. And that may be something we'll try to bring to you in the near future.
Great. And you referred to some studies about wind energy. Are you aware of studies about impacts of solar development?
Mr. President, Commissioner Masterson, yes, we are.
Would you mind, if you're emailing me anyway, and perhaps Commissioner Bell, I'd be curious about that as well. See what those.
Absolutely. Yes.
Am I correct? Let's see if I can get this question out. if there was some catastrophic unforeseen impact, instead of predicting only 100 bats were going to be killed, 10,000 were killed. Am I correct that the department does not have the authority to come in and say, you got to stop? You got to shut down the turbines until we figure this out. Am I correct in that?
Mr. President, Commissioner Masterson, that is correct. If there was a significant exceedance of those thresholds and comparisons to other facilities that are relative and so forth, I think most, and I don't care what type of energy development it is. Most of the folks out there that are doing these projects want to do the right thing.
Absolutely. I agree completely. I agree. I absolutely agree. And the work you've done establishing cooperative relationships and getting people to the table is amazing. And I'm not taking anything away from that. I'm just saying if someone put up a wind farm, got their ISC permit, and something went south and they decided they didn't want to cooperate anymore, my point is I don't believe the department has any regulatory authority to say you have way exceeded the number of raptors that are killed. You have to shut down until we figure it out.
That is correct. If that were to occur and, our consultation with the developer, the project proponent and so forth, if they weren't listening to us, certainly we would engage with industrial sightings and make them aware of the situation. And they are a permitting authority.
Right. Understood. Okay. Thank you very much. I appreciate your work.
Mr. President, one more. Will, thank you. You've mentioned industrial siting, and I've been working with industrial siting quite a bit lately. And it's a very familiar face in there. Ms. Staben, she was here for a while, but she was also with me in Campbell County. And so, but they've seen a very big bump in the amount of industrial siting qualifications, and we're starting to see that kind of all over the state. Just maybe talk about that impact to your guys' workload. That would be, if maybe it's not a big deal, but it seems like there's many, many more projects right now looking at Wyoming than there was 5 or 10 years ago.
Mr. President, Commissioner Bell, you're spot on. Not only, wind has been around long enough that I think in many cases we would consider that a traditional land use here in Wyoming, right? We've had wind on the ground for over 25 years. However, when you look at the level of not only wind, and there's a new trend that we're seeing from developers that they're a combination, they're wind, solar, as well as they will have a battery, storage unit, all tied into one project. A lot of times the solar is being sited where there may be conflict with like golden eagle nests and so forth. And so they'll put that in that portion of the property and turbines where there's less of a threat to those animals. But our estimates, a year ago, I provided Director Bruce with an estimate that was a little north of like 300 hours a project that we probably spend. It's after spending some more time counting some numbers, we came up with a number that's probably closer to like 500 hours that we're spending on each one of these projects. Right now, I don't know, we've got 8, 10 either solar, wind, or combination projects in the hopper that the biologists are balancing. It's a huge amount of our workload.
Just to follow up on that, does it help when those projects happen? And I'm to full disclosure, I'm intimately involved with the some of these projects in the Powder River Basin, but is it help when those projects are in already known studied areas, for example, mine permit areas where we've been involved in for a long time, or there's already been NEPA evaluations or inside of an industrial park. There's some exemptions also, and there's some now exemptions coming potentially in through legislature for other things inside industrial parks and on those properties. Does it help us with our, I mean, there's already some baselines, there's already some studies done. Does it help when it's in those areas?
Mr. President, Commissioner Bell, it is certainly helpful. However, having, that data gets stale too, right? If it was 10 years ago, and hopefully if it's in a pre-disturbed area, there's been reclamation activities that have, continued to mature and so forth. And, if it's sagebrush reclamation, which is, incredibly challenging, hopefully that's changed in that time period, which would have influenced the suite of potential species of like songbirds, for example, that may be found there. So sometimes, even though having some great, historic data, having that fresh look at that. So, it may be a case where we have more of an abbreviated, maybe we would be recommending 1 year of pre-construction surveys rather than 2 or something like that. So, so some of this, we have to be flexible and we have to, be rational about it too. It's not like a hard no, that's 5 years old. It's, hey, let's take a look at this. Is it meaningful? Can it inform that pre-construction survey? Because really all we're trying to do with those pre-construction surveys is help that developer figure out if those resources are there or not. Hey, you've got burrowing owls. You're going to need to think about, avoiding them during the nesting period. That's really the whole impetus behind, we're not just checking a box, we're asking them, hey, figure out what you've got and what kind of resources you're going to have to try to avoid, minimize, or mitigate.
Mr. President, if I may, thank you for this presentation, Will. On the page 16, talking about the estimated 2025 bird and bat fatalities, and I believe you said you had some biologists helping to collect that data. And do you have biologists outside of the department that are participating in that as well?
Yeah, Commissioner, President Jalovich, Commissioner Haskell, I'm sorry I wasn't clear enough. The project proponent will hire biological consultants that will complete those mortality surveys. And so we're not actually the boots on the ground that are collecting that data, but then that's provided in a report to us. We do interact when a project comes to your neighborhood. We're on the phone with Matt Hazinga and folks up there. Hey, tell us what you know about this area. Do you have, an idea? Is this an area that we've got some concerns and so forth? So we'll work with our population, our terrestrial and our aquatic biologists to get that boots in the ground perspective, because we're stuck in an office somewhere most of the time.
Sure. Thank you for that answer and that clarification. And to kind of piggyback off of Commissioner Masterson's question in regards to regulatory authority, I know there's some limitations there, but with the Director Bruce's presentation and award to Black Hills Energy, she noted that, they've been very proactive in helping with, improving habitat and providing infrastructure for some of these types of species. Wind energy, I know that you mentioned some things that they're doing to try to offset some of that, the fatalities and mitigate that, but are there any sort of credits that, they can spend to help fund the department to do, some of this important work?
That's an interesting thought to maybe give some a little bit more do a little noodling on that, if there could be some incentivization of doing that. Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's good. I see potential there, you know, just to help. And I think it shows good faith. And like you said, the people that are involved in this, they absolutely care about the resource and they want to do what's right. But, you know, as is always our challenge, right, as we're struggling to look for funding and ways to fund projects and things. And I think this could be a way to help offset that. I did notice on the map, and I found it interesting that you used the term superb. I've never heard that term in relation to wind, but I do want to note again that on the map, that the Casper, Commissioner Masterson's beloved Casper area is bordering on superb for wind. And again, Commissioner Bell and I, we're just fair. So thank you for that.
Yeah, Mr. President, Commissioner, that's an excellent question, what you said. I don't know if Deputy Director Jeff Davis wants to speak in, but we're currently develop a quantitative mitigation framework because Will can talk about several companies want to just voluntarily contribute towards some sort of proactive mitigation. And so having a vehicle to calculate that, to quantify it in order when they want to. Again, nothing in regulation, but yet have that opportunity out there.
Thank you.
Let's take a 10-minute break real quick.
Okay. Right. Good morning, Mr. President, members of the commission, Director Bruce. Very excited actually to do this presentation this morning. I have with me our Chief Technology Officer, Jason Edwards, and we're going to talk about the status of our mobile application that we've been working on. And just wanted to give a little bit of background on this project. This kind of began a little over a year ago, where we had some internal discussions about what we could do to provide a better customer experience for all of our users. And one of the things that kept coming to the surface was providing a mobile application to our hunters and fishermen. So as we went through that process, we looked at a multitude of different options, one of which being, should we hire an external company to come in and provide this for us and try to work with them and see what that looked like, and certainly look at the costs of doing that and a multitude of other things. But what kept coming to the forefront was the fact that we have a fairly unique licensing system. And as we go and move into the future with this application, what kind of control and editing ability and customer service can we provide with a third-party application versus doing one internally? And luckily, we have a pretty excellent staff that has a wide range of abilities, and we've been able to move forward with an internal application developed by our own people. And we're pretty happy with the progress, pretty excited about where this is headed. We wanted to make sure we were bringing this to you today just to give you a status update more than anything, but we're pretty much on track. We feel like over the course of the next several months, we're going to be able to likely roll out a product that we're going to be very proud of, but we certainly want to take the time to do the appropriate amount of testing, the appropriate amount of work to make sure that whatever we do present to the public is as top-notch as we can make it. So with that, I'm going to turn this over to Jason, but just wanted to give you a little bit of background on how we got here and where we're headed. So thank you.
President Jelovich, members of the commission, Director Bruce. My name is Jason Edwards, as Sean said, Chief Technology Officer here at the Game and Fish. Excited today to present to you this kind of informational presentation of the mobile web application development. Previous times that I've had the opportunity to address the commission, it's been for awards, for service awards, so I was focusing on a particular person. I am really happy that we get to talk a little bit of technology here. You will forgive me if in the presentation I take a little bit of backstory to this and kind of explain the background of how we go about developing applications and why we do some of the things that we do. Because everyone always says, well, can you get one out there really, really fast? And yeah, the answer is always yes, we could get something out there really, really fast. But we don't always get what we want when we go fast. So we will move into what we're looking at. So this is just kind of my tick-off slide for what I'm going to cover. So the project overview, I think Sean pretty much covered that. Core principles, key launch features, interoperability, which we will talk about, future roadmap, and then timeline. So when you have a mobile app, you've got to ask yourself kind of what you really are desiring to do with that mobile app. And there are certain desired results that we're looking for, and there's certain things we're not looking to do. So some of those desired results are the benefit to the public and the department. You know, what is the public going to get out of this app? Is it going to be of use to them? Is it going to serve a function for the department, either through better relations with our customers, communication devices, better work out in the field, compliance with officers, things like that? Is it easy to use? Do you have an app that's really complicated or really hard to navigate? If it's not easy to use, a user's not going to touch it. Does it create efficiencies? Does it make it quicker for a stop with a warden? When I've talked to Aaron Kerr, for instance, about stops, the minimizing the time of a stop in the field is super, super important. Because the longer you hold on to a person out in the field, the more the chance that it will escalate. So if we can make this an efficient use, benefit. Provides functionality without connectivity. This is a really, really important thing for a mobile app, especially within a state like Wyoming. You know, probably in the future, in 10 years, every one of our phones will be satellite enabled. We'll be able to get data anywhere we're at. But right now, we're still in that mode where we have a lot of landscape where you cannot get data connection. So this app has to be able to be usable in the field without connectivity. It has to be an effective outreach tool. We can't be shooting ourselves in the foot by giving a really faulty product to our customers. And that's the last one, functions without errors. Because one of the challenges you have when you do a mobile app, there are basically two major marketplaces where everyone gets their mobile apps. If you're on an Android-based phone, you get it through the Google Play Store. If you're on an Apple phone, you get it through the Apple Store. And those two companies control their environment. So I can't simply just push code out to their environment and say it's available to the public as soon as I publish it. They actually have review processes. We've worked with Google for a number of years with our CheckStation app, so we kind of know their process. They expedite governmental applications. Great. Apple is a different beast altogether. They take days to review. So if we roll out an application that has a serious error, we're probably looking at days before we can get a new copy out there. So we want to make sure that we're functioning without errors. What we don't want to do, we don't want to duplicate our website. Our website has tons of information on it. People do research before they go out in the field. There's no point in trying to recreate that within an app. We also want connection dependent we don't want connection dependent for usability. So you'll notice that when we look at the items that we're including in the first launch of this app, there's only one that requires connectivity, and that is license sales. And there's a real reason for that. We don't want cumbersome navigation, and we don't want unreliability. So to get to this core launch, we had a lot of discussions, like Sean said. The IT Oversight Committee, which has got representatives of all the divisions within the department, meets on a monthly basis, and we talked about this many, many times, about what functions we thought were best for it. Then we took it to staff and we had discussions in staff meeting. And we tried to whittle it down so that we could be successful at launch. You might be underwhelmed by the number of items that we're including, but that's because we're taking a phased approach to this. First, get out a stable product that's got some usability, and then approach and add on things incrementally. We wanted to make sure that it was integrated with our current Game and Fish logins for the website and the licensing systems. We wanted to provide the functions offline. We wanted to allow for incremental functions to be added. We wanted to also create a unique communications platform. And that's one thing I won't get into a super lot of detail, but the notification system that is going to be built into our app is different than notification systems that you're used to in most of your mobile devices. It's going to rely partly on an internal database that resides in the app that can be customized to the user. It's going to be partly based upon that user's license history and what's in their wallet. And then it is going to be partly based upon what our communication team wants to send to them. So we wanted to allow for future interoperability. And that simply means that we want this to work with other applications within the department. So we have a check station app that has been utilized for, probably close to 7 years now. I can't remember the exact date when we launched that. But every time you go to a check station, that app comes out, they scan your license, they collect a lot of information. We're adding more functionalities to that check station app, which will include scanning capabilities for the QR codes that we're putting into this app, so that as a warden checks a license, it'll be instantaneous for him to retrieve additional information on the customer. And we will see that in the future when we discuss future phases of things like possible e-tagging or landowner coupon redemptions, things like that that could be used in the app. So. Whoops, now I just jumped ahead. Okay. So I think that IT people are a little bit geeky anyway, but it was really bugging the team that they didn't know what to exactly call this. We just keep saying mobile app, mobile app. But they came up with this concept of a project name called Daypack. And the reason they chose that name was, what would you need to put in your backpack when you go out into the field that the Game and Fish can provide you? And so this mobile app is their Daypack. We're still asking Communications and Roy to try and get us a better name for the application before we launch it, or if we even need an application name, but that's what it's about. It's like, what do you need when you're out in the field? And what do you need when you're in the remote areas? And so I think two of the primary things that we're going to see on the next list address that. I mean, obviously you want all your licenses in an easy to retrieve location. We know we're all a big, huge fan of the IPOS fanfold licenses that, have 7 panels and then you have 12 of them. And yeah, I get it. So the digital license wallet is a great thing, but also regulations out in the field. How often do our, constituents get out in the field and realize they don't have a regulation booklet with them? And you can have all of your regulations in the field, downloaded to your phone, ready to go. So the initial features, like I said, very short list, but it had to have offline capabilities for almost everything except those license sales. As you'll see, the digital wallet, regulations, custom notifications, which is mixed depending on whether you're online or not. You might get more messaging. License sales, no. There is a LSA locator that's been included in this that works offline that uses GPS. Multi-user capability. So if you're a father and you have kids, we're allowing you to have up to 5 logins all associated and be able to perform offline activities on all 5 customers while you're in the field. Scannable licenses, once again, talking about the check station, how that would look. And then a license history, if you want to go back and peruse, when did my license just expire? Or, didn't I have this area last year? You would be able to look at your own license history right at the touch of a button. So the digital wallet is probably the primary thing that everyone said has to be there. how it exists today, and I don't have a mobile app that I'm going to sit here and show you, but I'm showing you a few screenshots of the prototypes that we're working on. So in kind of the middle section where it says welcome Martin, which is Martin Hicks, by the way, that's his lifetime conservation stamp. So if you need to know his license number, there it is. No, doesn't mean anything to you. But anyway, it's the first and most prominent feature of the landing page of the application. You can click on any license in that carousel. It'll take you to the detail. You can see a QR code there that will be scannable. Very easy to use and very easy for a game warden to identify and validate in the field. Regulations, probably the second most important feature that's going to be there, these offline regulations. So we're not going to force you to have every regulation downloaded on your phone. You get to pick and choose what's important to you. But you go into the regulation menu, you see in the green, the ones that are green have yet to be downloaded. They will always be the most available and updated license regulation. And then the blue ones are the ones that you've downloaded to your phone and that you can pull up anywhere without connectivity at all. As new regulations become available, there will be notifications in your app that says there's regulations ready to be downloaded and prompting you to download those regulations. So license sales. Now, this was one that when we got to staff and we talked about what needed to be in launch, there was really this strong opinion, even though it's not an offline functionality, that there has to be some component of license sales. And what we did to determine what we wanted to do with license sales, I mean, we have over, I don't know if Josh isn't here today, but I think we have close to 300 different products that we sell in combinations. We're not going to sell 300 different products through this mobile phone. What we did is we looked at things that are bought online through our online portal, and 90% of those licenses that are bought online cover about 10 products. It's mostly fishing, conservation stamps, maybe an elk management permit, something like that. So we're going to have a very limited availability of licenses that are purchased, but they will meet probably 90 to 95% of the need of the app. So that is the last feature that we were working on because we had already started working on some of this other stuff before the final decision was made to include license sales. And we're anticipating that the primary programming on that will be done by later this month, early into August somewhere before we begin testing. So this was just a slide that was included to kind of give you some screenshots of our prototype. On the left, you see the license selling agents map, help section, kind of the license histories over there on the right. The profile screen is where we have multiple users. So Martin and I are on the same user or on the same phone for whatever reason. But he met my daughter at Culver's the other day, so we're like family now. So. Okay, interoperability. This is a point that I just want to reiterate. It's so important when we develop applications in-house. One of the reasons that we say it's important for us to develop in-house is because we can create this cross-functionality between systems. When you buy a product off the shelf, you're kind of isolated, and then you have to go through hoops if you want it to communicate with another application. And what we're trying to do here is with building this on our own, that it's going to be natively linked to our licensing system. It'll be natively linked to our check station application. It'll be natively linked to maybe a different application, however e-tagging works, harvest surveys. That way, for us, it creates huge efficiencies on our end. For the customer, it should also create a better experience, that they're not having to jump through hoops. So if you know, and I'm not saying this is a bad thing, but if you know our process right now for Hunter Ed, people don't like that because we do have a third party that we use primarily for our Hunter Ed certificates, but we require them to be a customer of the Game and Fish. So they have a two-step process where they have to first log in and create a customer if they don't yet have a customer ID with Game and Fish, and then go into the portal to do their hunter ed registration. So interoperability from our standpoint is really good for us, and it's really good for the customer. So future phases, these are things that have been discussed. None of them are set in stone. None of them couldn't be superseded by a better idea or a better use. E-tagging is probably the biggest one. I mean, many states are using e-tagging. We have concerns from the law enforcement perspective that we need to work out internally before we address e-tagging specifically, but we're getting much closer to where it should be an option. And when I mean an option, a lot of states have gone to a hybrid methodology where they say, do you want a physical tag and tag your take with that physical tag, or do you want to use an e-tag? You can have one or the other. You can't choose. Once you buy your license, you've made the choice. And so you can either do e-tagging or not. But those are things we need to cover before we get to that point. I think some of the easier ones that we'll probably get to, HMA integration and HMA permission slips, I think those will be things that we can add to their wallet that will be helpful to them. Linking harvest reporting with our various partners that we do harvest reporting with. We can increase customer constituent engagement by doing some things that really don't have a purpose necessarily for us other than to engage our customers, kind of like we do with our angler programs. You know, we can perhaps provide you your Master Angler Awards in your app if you want to carry them around and show people, look, I got a Master Angler Award, and keep your fish there. I mean, it's something that doesn't sound like it's really important, but when we talk about customer relationships, sometimes that is important. So the implementation timeline. Now, this is still a little bit vague. So like I said, we're working on completing the initial license sales functionality. Then we were going to go into a prolonged testing phase. We've already been testing other parts of the functionality, trying to make sure that we have no kinks. We also want to take another pass with our communications team, especially their design personnel, to polish this up as pretty as possible. But once we've got that, once we know that the licensing is working perfectly, once we are sure we're not going to fall on our face when we launch, we will be ready for launch. And best estimates is it's going to be sometime late in the fall. We don't want to kind of confuse the public by launching right at the start of hunting season, because this really, I mean, from your wallet perspective, right now we don't have e-tagging. So if you're out hunting big game, yeah, your license is going to appear in your wallet, but it's not going to do you a lot of good because you need that tag. So it would perhaps confuse the public saying, well, why do I need this? If they were going fishing, yeah, great. The regulations, great, but we don't want to create any confusion or hype about something that may not exist. So, and only once we believe that we're really ready would we really want to roll this out. So, and that is my presentation. Are there any follow-up questions?
Mr. President, so the one thing that I think just, I'm curious what and how we just figure out, you know, when we impact the license selling agents. I mean, there's going to be one, and we already require them to have $1,000 a year, and there's probably going to be some. I mean, I never go to a licensed selling agent in other states. I just buy it on the app, but that's going to happen here if, you know, as we move through this. And I don't know. I mean, it's not really anything we'll have to deal with that department wide and figure out how that works.
Commissioner Bell, President Jolovich, from my perspective, one of the things by limiting what we're going to offer up front, just a handful of licenses, and matching that to what we currently offer on our online sales. So you could go currently on your phone to our online sales portal, buy a fishing license. We allow you to download the image of that fishing license on your phone and it's valid out in the field. We're not really replacing, it's just a one-to-one replacement of that functionality. When we get into other products, I think that's where you're going to see maybe a bigger question of if we're really impacting the LSAs. So people that are comfortable with technology, they're probably already buying it online. There are people that just like to go to the LSAs to buy their fishing license. There were studies done many, many years ago when we were talking about transitioning when we first went live with electronic licensing. And other states that had already implemented electronic licensing told us, okay, here's what you'll see. In the first year, you'll see 30% of your sales through your new system and online. And then it'll increase and it'll increase and you'll get up to like 60, 70, 80% of those licenses will be through this electronic means. And we discovered a funny thing, especially with our fishing licenses. They kind of plateaued further down than that. People really still enjoy going into the store and getting their fishing license for whatever reason. It hasn't drastically changed in the last 10, 15 years. We've seen a fairly steady dollar amount for our LSAs over those years, and we haven't had price increases for resident licenses, so nothing has changed. Now, this could impact it. We just don't know that.
Mr. President, I have a question. So being an outfitter, I use my outfitter portal account and do license apps for my clients. And, then their licenses are mailed to me and I distribute them when they arrive. But I'm assuming once a license has been issued that it probably just is assigned to their sportsperson identification number and, they can log in. I'm not sure if you're familiar with how that works. On my end, as the through the outfitter portal, I don't need all of their login information for their account. I can just, have the information that's needed to be able to access it. But I'm assuming that's probably how that'll work or look.
Yes, that's exactly how it will work. So they'll still have their own login account that's assigned to that sportsman ID. They can log in and then it'll pull in that information for any license that are assigned to that sportsman ID. So. And sorry, Commissioner Haskell didn't address you straight up. Thank you.
Good morning, President Jolovich, members of the commission, and Director Bruce, Craig Smith, Deputy Chief of the Wildlife Division. Here to provide a pretty quick update on where the department is at in reviewing landowner license authorizations. And this will be real quick. And we were asked at the last July meeting after the regulation was passed to come back in a year and let you know where we're at. So I put this slide in only really so that we can focus on, you can barely see it, but the last line there on qualification for landowner licenses shall be reviewed and verified by the department in its discretion at any time, but no less than once in every 5 years. And that was something new that this commission approved in July of 2025. And then further, after the approval of that, you requested that we actually complete this task in the next 3 years. So here we are, just to give you a quick breakdown. That was passed like I said, last year in July at the commission meeting held in Evanston. And just as a quick reminder, of the qualifications. The landowner applicant has to have a minimum of 160 acres, or the property does, a minimum of 2,000 days of use for the species that there's being applied for within the 12-month period immediately preceding that date of application. So none of that has changed. And so a statewide update, this is just a summary of all of the regions together, not a region by region results, but of about 2,027 properties that we have had in the system. To date, we've completed about 446 of those across the state for 22% roughly. Now the 2,027 that we list up there, that number rises and falls annually just based on who's applying and what's going on. So that was the 2025 number that we had in our information, and that's what we directed the folks to go off of. So far, we've had 93 new requests across the state. 42 of those have been approved, 21 have been denied, and the rest are still outstanding that still need to be done prior to the next application period for those licenses.
Craig, do you mind, I don't know if you know this, but how's that break down, deer, elk, antelope? Do you know?
I don't have it broken down by species.
Okay, that's right.
My assumption, Commissioner Bell, is that most of those are elk. Yeah. And we will,
Mr. President, since we already interrupted your flow, Craig, if I may, Mr. President, do you have any idea, is there I'm talking about the denials. Is there any like overwhelming reason that you keep seeing over and over for a denial, or is it or do you know?
President Jolovich, Commissioner Masterson, we didn't ask for that specific information, but my understanding and just having the casual conversations is it's based on mostly on the use. Some properties, some folks are just calling and requesting it and aren't even meeting the acreage to begin with. So there's a few things, but primarily it's the use. Yep. You're welcome.
Since we're on it, Mr. President, can I ask you one quick question?
Absolutely.
So of the 446, those were existing properties out of the 2027. Have any of those been denied?
President Jolovich and Commissioner Mai, we have had some denials of those that have been reviewed to date. Yes.
Mr. President, since we're interrupting, Craig, thank you for this. I'm wondering, the approval or denial, is that just left to the discretion of wardens, or does that come back to regional supervisors and they make that decision, or even further to your chain of command?
Sure. Mr. President, Commissioner Haskell, great question. Of course, our wardens are going to be the ones that are going to do the evaluation on the ground if that's what's required in combination with information provided by the landowners. If they don't meet the minimum use requirements, then they are notifying their supervisor, and then a letter is being sent that outlines the reasons why. To date, I haven't had anything come to our level to discuss or review further, but we'll touch on it here in a moment, a few of the things that we've heard in relation to some of the denials. We've been told from our folks, that it's requiring, if they have to go on the ground and conduct a pellet survey, for instance, that it's running them about 6 to 8 hours per evaluation on average. So it is becoming a bit of a time commitment for our folks, and we recognize that, but we also did ask that they kind of address some of those properties that they might have anticipated hadn't been looked at in quite some time, or that might be a little bit questionable, so to speak, just to make sure that they were getting those things taken care of up front. So I would anticipate as we move through this process in the next 1.5 to 2 years that hopefully that time commitment will drop a little bit, but they are spending a significant amount of time on each one of these. We have had some folks deny access to do an evaluation. They just said, no, I'm not going to let you come on. And in those cases, then we've just said, we can't authorize it if you're not going to allow us to verify it. And there have been some discussions about legal action that might be taken against the department if folks don't receive licenses. Again, those are things that our field wardens are hearing. I'm not aware of any actions to date, and none of that has been on my desk either. But we are hearing some pushback from this, as I think we all expected. And again, as I spoke earlier, a lot of the 2026 reviews were a little more labor intensive, and we expect that to kind of pick up the pace a little bit going forward. And as you would imagine, some of the regions, Jackson and Pinedale, for instance, don't have a lot of these to review, so they're making good progress. And, folks in Southeast Wyoming and Casper and Laramie regions specifically have a lot more to do. So if you looked at them as a percentage, they might look like they're behind the 8 ball, but they have a ton of those to do. And with some of our existing vacancies, a little bit more work to do. So with that, that's my update, and I'm happy to answer any further questions.
Mr. President, hi. I have a couple questions and a comment. Craig, thank you. For what it's worth, and for any game warden within the sound of my voice, I understand. I haven't done it, but I am very well aware of, and I've heard over and over how time-consuming this process can be when there's a lot of things on their to-do list. And so I'm very appreciative of the time that it is taking to go through this and their patience for going through it. So thank you for shepherding this, and my thanks to the wardens for going through this. I'm sure they understand at some level it's got to be done, but I appreciate how tedious it is and how time-consuming it is. So my thanks to them. I'm wondering if in maybe 6 months or wherever a convenient time would be, after the season or sometime early next year, if you can come back and give us an update again. And if that's possible, given the questions that you had, adding some more work for you, including species breakdown, the existing licenses, how many have been approved and denied? And if denied, why? And same thing for the new licenses. And I don't think we need, 2 paragraphs on why something was denied. It could just be insufficient acreage, insufficient usage, something like that. Just try to keep it as simple as possible in a reporting context. Because I think that would give us information that would be helpful as this landowner license process continues to evolve. That would be my suggestion. I won't speak for the body. I don't know if anybody else shares that, but I think it would be helpful. My question, my other comment is the legal action. If somebody threatens legal action, after practicing law for 40 years, if somebody's going to sue you, they're going to sue you. We have good representation. I think we have a good record upon which to defend any action we take. So I'm not being flippant about it. I realize it's a time-consuming thing, but if somebody's going to do it, they're going to do it. So that doesn't get me too worked up personally. My last thing is a question. The picture you have on your last slide, where did you take that?
President Jolovich, Commissioner Masterson, I can assure you that I didn't take the photograph.
Oh, okay. Well, never mind.
I can't answer that.
Okay, fair enough. I appreciate it, Craig. Thank you. Not that one.
Not. Oh, the last
last
slide.
one.
I thought you were talking about the previous slide. And it goes back the wrong way when I do that.
Yeah. That one.
Another great question that I can't answer. Would have to ask Kendra Brown where she found this photograph for me. That's the view from my porch, Commissioner Masterson. Any other questions? Thank you.
Okay. So, Mr. President, members of the commission, and Director Bruce, today I'd like to present our department communication plan for 2026 and beyond. So I want to start off with a little bit of a background as far as how we got to this point. So last fall, Director Bruce asked the communications division to put together some comms priorities for this next year for things we want to message about. And so we reached out to the divisions and got some great feedback from them as far as what they thought was important for us to message, and kind of put that together and developed kind of 5 main priorities for us to focus on this year. And really, as we look through those priorities, we realize that habitat plays a huge role in that. And so we're really focusing on habitat kind of as an umbrella across all those comms priorities. So I'll go through those fairly briefly with you here. So like I said, the habitat kind of overlays all the priorities. For what we're messaging this next year, we're focusing on wildlife habitat management areas and public access areas, habitat projects, landowner roles, aquatic habitat, and mule deer conservation, which feeds into the mule deer conservation strategy that came out earlier this year. So what I'll do is I'll go through each of these priorities and kind of show some progress we've had so far this year, because it's been about 6 months so far since we started. So starting out with wildlife habitat management areas and public access areas, I won't bore you by reading the core goal on each of these, but really the main focus of this is to explain why these properties were acquired in the first place. And they're acquired for habitat and access for wildlife and the public. As we went through this, we realized a lot of people don't realize what properties we own, where they're located, and why we acquired them in the first place. So we're trying to get that message across to the public so they understand. And also it helps out with future acquisitions of property too, so they realize the benefit those properties play. And also for these areas, we wanted to focus on rules of use. A lot of the public access areas especially are on private property. And so we want to make sure the public knows to follow those rules. It could cause issues with our easements and so on if they don't. So we're trying to get that messaging across too. So starting off with WHMAs and PAAs, on the left-hand side of these screens, they just kind of show some of the avenues we're using to get that messaging out. On the right hand of the screen there, we have a special or a inlay for our Wine and Wildlife magazine. Each month we have a separate WHMA that we feature. As you can see, it shows a map and a picture of the property, the year it was acquired, how many acres it was, if there's closures on it, so the public understands more about that, and then some of the species data as well. So those have been going very well. We have one each month this year. And we can also highlight these areas on our Facebook and Instagram pages as well. And we've been doing that too to help reach a different segment of population. I would like to mention too that our Wyoming Wildlife magazine has over 20,000 subscribers to it. And we are hoping to get some additional funding from some outside sources for some marketing funds to help market that magazine to help get some more subscribers and reach more people in the future. So here I just have some examples of things we've done. So on the left-hand side of the screen there, we have a Laramie Region newsletter that goes out to people who subscribe to the Laramie Region information. In the middle of the screen, we have a feature on our Facebook and Instagram showing the Sunlight Basin WHMA and information about that. On the upper right-hand corner, we have the Deer Creek Canyon Public Access Area. That's a YouTube video that went out. It had over 1,600 views so far on YouTube. And those also go and can be picked up by radio or TV stations as well. In a lot of cases, the TV stations pick up those, and those have, we estimate, about 70,000 people that see those when they go on TV. And then on the bottom side, we have another regional newsletter and a radio piece. So Ray Hageman in our office does a lot of radio pieces, and so we send those out to radio stations, and they pick those up for the public to view as well, or listen to as well. So moving on to habitat projects, this one is very straightforward. So we're just trying to highlight great habitat projects we're working on across the state. And so it's been really great because we've reached out to the regions and they've been very good to let us know when they're working on these projects so we can take before and after photos and videos and get the message across about the great things the department's doing for habitat across the state. And so that's been going very well so far. So here on this screen, I just have on the right-hand side, there's a podcast video that we put together, and it's on YouTube as well. It's with Ian Tater, who's our terrestrial biologist at the headquarters office, and it goes through some of the great habitat projects we have on the terrestrial side on that video. That one has over 500 views so far. Here's some more examples of things we've done with this. On the left-hand side of the screen, you have a mountain mahogany treatment video that we put together for social media. Those are kind of short form videos for social media that show really quickly what we do. That really reaches the younger segment of the population. That little video has over 22,000 views so far on Facebook and Instagram. And the same thing on the treated versus untreated there on the screen. That's another just showing on social media the extra growth that comes from that. And then in the middle, you have a press release on the upper side there, a press release. We use press releases on a regular basis to get out to the media outlets across the state as well. And on the lower middle, that's a YouTube video about the Lusby habitat improvements that they've been doing. That has over 600 views so far, and TV has also picked that up as well. And on the right-hand side, we have just an inlay from our Wyoming Wildlife Magazine of different projects for habitat across the state, and with a little map that shows where they're at. So that's habitat projects. Moving on to landowner roles. So this one has been probably the most difficult for us to message so far. We're really trying to find landowners who have done habitat projects on their property that we can highlight to show the benefit to ag producers as well as wildlife. And we have some great ones we're working on up in the Sheridan region especially. We'll keep looking at different great stories to tell as far as that goes. As far as this landowner roles priority goes as well, we're also working to help the public understand that wildlife does have a benefit and it can increase property values in many cases. I think we hear a lot of negative effects of wildlife on the landscape, such as eating forage, but we want to tell the story also that it improves property values, and sometimes additional revenue such as access yes and stuff can come in too and help out the operation. So this screen here, I just have a inlay from our Wyoming Wildlife Magazine about the Access Yes successes in 2025 for landowner roles. And then on this screen, I have the 2025 on the left-hand side, the large screen there, the 2025 Access Report that was shown on YouTube and has been picked up by TV, has over 760 views on YouTube so far. Upper right-hand corner is another radio spot about the access programs that we have. And on the bottom right-hand corner, we have a web page from our website showing the Landowner of the Year program that we have, which we'll be talking about again in September for the recognizing those landowners for their contributions. Have a lot of views on that one since it was posted on January 1st this year. Next, talking about aquatic habitat. This one is also very straightforward, just trying to find very great aquatic habitat projects that our team is working on across the state. And once again, trying to get videos and photos of those as we go through that process to show the public what we're doing. So this one here on the right-hand side, we have a podcast that we had with Paul Day, who was here yesterday and received the Director's Award. This one, he's an aquatic habitat program manager, and this video has over 400 views so far on YouTube, just explaining some great aquatic habitat projects across the state. And this one here, just some more examples showing what we're doing here. On the left-hand side are 2 fishing and boating newsletters. Those newsletters go out to about 186,000 people. And we can tell based on the emails that go out when they click on those to learn more about that information. And we have over 46% open rate on those, which is my understanding that's pretty good for those newsletters. In the upper middle, we have an inlay from the magazine again about a project profile up in Grable. On the bottom, we have another newsletter and then an AIS social media post that has over 14,000 views so far too. And on the right-hand side, there's another newsletter for the Lander region that goes out to about 6,000 people. Pretty good open rate on that one as well. Next, talk about mule deer conservation. Like I said before, this one is really tied to our mule deer conservation strategy and getting the information out about that. So basically, just get the word out about the need for political as well as financial support for mule deer across the state. So we're doing our best to get the word out about that with this priority. So on this page, I have on the right-hand side a news brief from our magazine talking about the mule deer conservation strategy. That news brief has a lot of information about the financial need for mule deer, which is really good as well. Then on this page, I have a couple different regional newsletters again about mule deer and a couple radio spots on the left-hand side of the screen. In the middle on the left, I have a social media video about mule deer fall migration based on trail cam footage. That has over 10,000 views so far on our socials. And then on the right-hand side in the middle, another social media video about mule deer diets. And we were able to use that footage that we had the camera on the mule deer to show what they were eating. That one has almost 10,000 views as well. And on the right-hand side, we have a web page from our website that also links to the mule deer conservation strategy so the public can click on that and learn more about mule deer conservation. And then I'd like to mention too, we're also working with Eastman's Journal at the request of Commissioner Haskell to get some information through their avenues, which they have a very large subscriber base. And so looking forward to have more information as far as the benefits of that relationship in the future. So that's kind of my presentation. I just wanted to take the time now to thank all the department personnel who have reached out with projects for us to highlight and helped us out in so many different ways to get this messaging out. I know a lot of times we have a lot of requests that come in for us to cover certain things, and we're kind of strapped as far as personnel goes in our division, but we're doing our best to get the people out there and get these great projects featured. So is there any questions or anything else for me?
Mr. President, thank you. I appreciate the presentation. Thank you. 2 quick questions. Do we have any presence on Instagram?
Mr. President, Commissioner Masterson, yes, we have Facebook and Instagram.
Okay.
We also have a Twitter account that we don't really use that much right now, but we may in the future.
Okay. And do we have stationary game cameras anywhere that people can, through the website drop into? And you see, I mean, you've seen them too, web cameras set up for an osprey nest or an eagle nest, or I think Colorado has one in a rattlesnake den. Those kind of things to attract viewers. Do we have any of those?
We don't have it in Comms Ed, but there's a chance Wildlife does. I'm not completely sure on that one. But it's a good idea. That's definitely bring it back to our team and see if we can do something like that.
Mr. President, Commissioner Masterson, we did a lot of that years ago. Really hard with streaming in this state. And so it proved quite difficult. There's probably some comms people that could talk about those struggles. So they've attempted to do that based on a request from a past commissioner.
Driving between Casper and Sheridan, I'm very aware of the dead spots that we have. It's, if the opportunity presents and if it was available and could be done, it's seems to attract eyeballs. So
for sure,
for what it's worth. Thank you.
Mr. President, if I may, thank you for this presentation, Roy. It's we all know that marketing, right? And that's
Yeah.
what's important, but I think you're doing a really good job. I'm really excited to see the stuff on social media. I share it every chance I get. I think it's just a really good job and a good, easy way to market the hard work and the good work that goes on in the department and the diversity of work, right? Everybody wants to see the big, sexy, wildlife, but I think showing all of this stuff. Are you partnering with any NGOs as far as sharing marketing? Because I know I see a lot on social media stuff from the Wyoming Migration Initiative and things like that, where they share video clips of mule deer migrating and things like that, whether it be from callers or trail cameras and stuff like that. But do you do some collaboration with NGOs in doing some marketing?
Yeah, Mr. President, Commissioner Haskell, that's definitely an opportunity for us to do. And I'm not completely familiar with all the different avenues we use. I think we can definitely do more of that and we can share more of their content. And there's a chance we do. I just haven't seen some of it. Yeah. Thanks.
Mr. President, Director Bruce, members of the commission, I get to be last again today, so I don't know what that says, but they save you for last either way. It happens to be my very last time to talk to the commission on the very last day. So I've got policies to review today. Skip that because I don't think anybody wants those. So when I say we, Meredith and I went through all of the fiscal related policies. And so today represents our recommendations on reviewing all those. There are 7 policies that recommend being removed, or revising 7, removing 8. There's a couple that were already updated recently, and one that doesn't need to be revised, but I'm going to show you anyway, just so you have to see them all. Just kidding. But we talked when we started, what is the point of a policy? When do you need a policy? When don't you need a policy? And so many of the powers and duties of the commission in Title 23, where it mentions here the commission shall, or references a power of the commission, many of those are implemented through regulation. So for example, electronic licensing, we talked yesterday about Chapter 44. There's a regulation about electronic licensing. You don't need to have a policy about it because it's spelled out in regulation. And then conversely, one of the policies in the packet today references cooperative research agreements. There's not a regulation about that, and so there should be a policy to address that. So we recommended reviewing or removing several policies that don't have any statutory reference to the commission. There are some, and I'll go into that in more detail. Some of the policies were purely procedural. There wasn't a statutory reference to the commission. They were really a procedure of how the department would do something. Many of these are way outdated. Some of them are 20 years old. We don't do that way anymore anyhow. So we said we don't need to have a procedure. And so we focused in the revised policies on what we do and not how you do it, knowing that procedures will change with time. So in terms of the policies that we talked about, there's a commission secretary policy that doesn't need to be revised. It still works just fine. 2, the uniform policy and the travel policy have been revised in the last couple of years, and so we didn't think those required any change. Now I just wanted to show you, this is the entire policy on the commission secretary, and just want to remind the commission that we have this policy and that it provides authority. The commission secretary is the chief fiscal officer, as described in statute, and the policy points out the fact that the CFO signs and reviews all the commission contracts, grants, memorandums of understanding, et cetera. And just every single legal document that is signed, Eric signs on behalf of the department, Meredith signs that on behalf of the commission. So just wanted to show you that one. I don't think maybe you all read all of the commission policies when you started on the commission. But just wanted to point that out because it has a basis in statute and it's how we conduct business. So in terms of policies that we're recommending to remove, some of them are in other statute and that statutes that says an agency shall do it. And so there wasn't a nexus to the commission. There's some things in here like travel or other things that are in state personnel rules or in state auditor rules. We don't need a policy that doesn't to tell us that we have to follow those rules that we already have to follow. And so if there wasn't a reference that the commission shall do something, and really in almost all these cases, whether there's a commission policy or not, we have to do it anyway. So there's no need to have a policy to tell us to follow someone else's rules. And the only time we would ever really need a policy in that case is if the commission wanted to be more restrictive. Say there was a threshold of $1,000 for something in statute and you guys wanted to see that only be $500, then we could do it. But if you wanted it to be $2,000, you could set a policy if you liked, but it wouldn't matter because if there was other statute that said $1,000, we'd have to follow that statute. And again, I said most of these are procedural and almost all of them were I think created, but last updated for sure in the year 2000. And so I'm not going to show you on the screen every one of those policies, just show them here. So one on transfers and moving, one on payroll, purchasing, employee reimbursements, funds receipting, Wyoming online financial system, miscellaneous purchases, and property accounting are the 9 policies that we recommend removing. And if you have any questions about those, happy to answer them. Otherwise, the department recommends the commission vote to approve deletion of those policies listed on the screen.
Mr. President, I would make a motion that we remove these policies the department has proposed and recommended.
Mr. President, I would second that.
Do we have any more discussion on that? No? There being none, I'll ask for a vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Pardon me?
Thank you. You're good.
He's waiting for you to.
I'm waiting for your votes.
Aye.
Those opposed? Seeing none opposed, motion carries. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. So these 7 policies, the department recommends revising those, and I'm going to step through each one of these and the nature of a revision. I provided the commission in the notebook. There are copies of each of these policies with the red line, so what exactly changed, and then the final accepted version of that. I'm going to just put up on the screen the final recommended version. And if you have questions, we can go through each of those. And I'll ask for a vote on each policy as we go. So anyway, that's what I'm going to do. There they are. So the first one, remind myself what I was going to say. So when we revised these, we tried to simplify them. So we put at the top of each policy the specific statutory reference for the commission authority to do something, made clear what was being delegated to the department. And in some cases, like in the licensed selling agent policy, there's some sort of back and forth between the department and the commission and sort of what we do, and as I mentioned earlier, but not how, so what we would do. And then in some of these, we stripped out procedures, again, thinking that the policy should tell the department what we do, but not how, simply because how always changes. And in a few, we outlined sort of a distinction between commission roles and department roles. All right, so first one, commission annual report. It's a simple policy in that statute, and the commission delegating authority for the department to prepare that report in accordance with those statutes. And if you have questions, otherwise the department recommends the commission vote to approve revisions to the policy on commission annual report.
Mr. President, a question or two, if I may. It's interesting, the statute indicates that we shall prepare a report. It does not indicate who we shall send a report to. Who does it go to? Legislature, I would presume, but don't know.
So I think the 9 to 10 14 23 1 503 28 1 115 have some of the who, and there is some additional reporting, but Meredith, do you remember like she said the governor's office, the budget office, and LSO.
Treasurer?
I don't think it goes to treasurer, no.
Okay. Okay. Then my second question is responsibility for preparing the annual report. Not a problem, but the commission needs to make sure it sees it and signs off on it. So I'm wondering if this shouldn't just include a sentence indicating that the commission shall review and approve the report prior to submittal, or something to that effect. I'm sure it happens as a matter of course, but you know how lawyers are. Hi, Meredith.
Mr. President, Commissioner Masterson, I really appreciate that statement, and I don't disagree that the commission should review it. The one thing I will say, and I'm working on it right now, we have to provide all of this audit documentation to the state auditor's office on very, very, very tight deadlines. And there's like I have so many due today. There would be absolutely no time for you to review and approve what is submitted out of the estate accounting system in verification to our internal systems prior to those deadlines. So I think it would be appropriate for it to be provided to the commission, perhaps at the same time as it is provided to the SIO. And this is aside from the narrative components. This is strictly the financial stuff. The narrative components are due to the governor's office and the budget office each August 31st for the prior fiscal year. Those are all being worked on currently. Mr. Kelly Todd is collecting that from all of the division chiefs at this point. So the only meeting we have for the commission to review and approve that would be July, which is frankly too tight of a deadline after the June 30th close of the fiscal year.
Don't go anywhere. Mr. President, couldn't we do just a brief video meeting? So you send out the final draft to the commission, and then we call a quick video meeting for approval for that one topic only?
Mr. President, Commissioner Mai, I think it's possible. Just to give you an idea on the financial side of things, I'm submitting subrecipients, federal receipt documentation, due to, due from information, all of those come in and change on a daily basis. Some of them are draft due today, some of them are final due at the end of August. I guess it's a matter of how many times you would want those ad hoc meetings to occur.
Mr. President, Commissioners, the narrative report, the governor report is something that you may find readable and be interested in. What Meredith's talking about are spreadsheets with a gazillion rows and columns, and I don't believe any commissioners want to look at that.
And if I may, so there's really two types of reports. The annual comprehensive financial report, that is produced by the state auditor's office. That is just litany of numbers from all agencies across the board, us being obviously a part of that. The narrative annual report, we actually have two. We have one that goes to the governor's office that is very clearly outlined and articulated in statute. They send a template for that. It's a summary of our programs in tying back to our strategic plan and those 7 goals. And then we also have the federal aid annual report, which is the governor's report plus a whole slew of other annual reports produced by the divisions and different work units like sensitive species, the report you just reviewed for that, as well as it does include some numbers, budget expenditures and that kind of thing at a very, very high level. Perhaps it's those narrative reports that you are specifically talking about, I'm not sure, but the comprehensive annual report. And for the financial side, we are audited every single month on a variety of transactions by the SAO, and we're also audited continuously by the feds from a financial standpoint. So maybe that's where there's a bit of a separation opportunity here.
Mr. President, members of the commission, perhaps this is one that you would like to think about more and have a little more hands-on by the commission.
Mr. President, I'm not sure about the more hands-on by the commission, but I think the commission has a responsibility. We as a group have, in my opinion, we as a group have a responsibility to fully understand what we're delegating here. And it's not an indictment of prior commissions in any way. It's just to say, if somebody on the commission is ready to tell me my concerns are completely unfounded and that we ought not examine this, then I will turn my mic off. Otherwise, I'd say, what's the harm in taking a bit and fully reviewing it and figuring out what questions we want to ask?
No, Mr. President, if I may, I might just suggest, like Dirk said, pause on this one before we make any adjustments. We provide you the full comprehensive annual report with all of its supplemental materials and additional reports for you to see what is being prepared and has been prepared historically, and you'd see the magnitude and volume of the documentation that is being summarized on an annual basis for all of our programs, including our financial stuff.
Mr. President, I like the idea because as Commissioner Mai said, I don't I don't know what I don't know. So it's absolutely not being critical of any prior commission or a question about anything that the department is doing. It's a question of we have a statutory, very specific, direct statutory instruction. We, the commission, shall do this. So the buck ultimately stops with us. So the idea of delegating something to you doesn't trouble me. I just want to know, I don't know what it looks like, you know, and if somebody were, if the legislature were to call me up and say, you know, come and sit in front of TRW, tell me what your audit report said, I would, and that would be a bad feeling. So I think the educational piece would be incredibly important to me. So I would suggest, I don't think you need a motion to do it, but I would suggest we pause on this one as the specific delegation. And we're also 2 commissioners down. They may have their own thoughts on it. It's very important you know this is not questioning anything that you have done or the idea or the concept or anything you've done in the past. It's, I look at a statute and it makes me a little concerned because it stops with me.
Mr. President, Commissioner Masterson, I think that's a perfectly fair statement. I do also believe that the magnitude of data that this agency produces and is very, very skilled at summarizing, you should definitely have that in front of you. And I think the volume of it might put your concerns at ease.
Mr. President. I'll make a motion to table this one as we move on to the next one.
Any more discussion? All in favor of tabling this item, you signify by saying aye. Opposed? There being no opposition, motion carries.
Moving on to 4A, Budget Development, Reporting and Control. This policy is, I think I've got a couple pages of a couple screens that show this half-page policy. Again, I'm not going to read that all to you, but again, we have requirements to report per statute, and the budget development process, as you are aware, comes through the commission. You voted yesterday to make final approval of the FY27 budget. So this policy is describing that. And if there are not questions, the department recommends the commission vote to approve revisions to the policy on budget development, reporting, and control.
Mr. President, I would move approval of this. And the distinction I see in this is that we're delegating, it's our responsibility again, but what we are delegating is the preparation of the budget. And then the key sentence is upon commission approval, we then delegate the authority back to the department to administer that budget. So I'm completely fine with this policy, and I appreciate the cleanup and making it a little bit clearer. So I would move its approval.
Second.
We've got a motion and a second. Any discussion? There being none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Thank you, sir. Next policy is payment policies. And this one fit all onto one slide. And again, this is authorizing the department to how we pay our bills. And if there are questions, we'll answer them. Otherwise, the department recommends the commission vote to approve revisions on commission policy on payment.
Mr. President, I would move approval of this policy.
Second.
Second, any further discussion? There being none, those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? There being no opposition, the motion carried. Thank you.
Thank you. Next policy is on the approval, renewal, and cancellation of licensed selling agents. This policy fits on a couple of slides, maybe two, I guess. There's no change in how we've conducted the approval, renewal, and cancellation of licensed selling agents between the renewal and updated one. This one's just a little more streamlined, I believe, in terms of how it's organized, but it's still what the department does and what the commission does haven't changed. Do you have any questions? Otherwise, the department recommends the commission vote to approve revisions on the licensed selling agent policy.
Mr. President, pending my friends at the other end of the table down there reviewing statutory book and language, I would move that we approve this recommendation from the department.
Do I have a second?
Mr. President, I would second that. And the distinction, I keep coming back to the distinction that I'm seeing between these. The distinction that I see is that the commission is involved in this process. If someone there's a contested case, it comes in front of the commission, so we get eyes on in that event. So that's the distinction I see. Therefore, I second.
I have a motion and a second. Any more discussion? There being none. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Those opposed? No opposition. Motion carries. Thank you.
Continuing on, progress towards lunch or the end of the meeting. Next policy is fiscal and accounting reports and calculations. And this one has a number of statutory references. And these are things that the department does. And I think I've got those on a couple of screens. Anyway, if there are any questions, otherwise the department recommends that you approve revisions to the fiscal and accounting reports and calculations policy. And if you have questions, I'm quite happy to have that Meredith is sitting behind me.
Mr. President, I'm seeing if my good friend from Moorcroft would like to move this, but I'll move the approval of this. And I think that the reason that I'm good with this one is because it ties back into that big audit one that we're going to talk about. Because this is a report, I read this as a reporting policy, providing and giving you the authority to do all the reporting. But all that's going to end up in the policy that we tabled that we'll talk about. So that's the backstop. That's why.
Mr. President, I'll second, and I guess I have maybe a question. I see verbiage in here relating to percentage of licensed sales being used for management and control of predators. Is that tied into the statutory stuff that we were presented yesterday with ADMB at $200,000 or whatever?
Yeah.
Mr. President, Commissioner Haskell, I believe the 200,000 is separate from this. This is just a limit on not to exceed the 4% of total license revenue for predator control. And then we manage that by reviewing total expenditures by the programs that we have, the 24 programs, and we don't come up to that amount, so.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Second.
Okay. Did you make a motion, John?
Yeah.
Okay. Motion's been made and seconded. Any more discussion? There being none, all of those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Opposed? There being none, motion carries. Thank you.
Okay, we're getting down towards the end here. This is 5B, and this is one on vehicle use, maintenance, purchase, and identification. Again, we made some changes to the policy. A lot of it was more organizational, and we did remove some procedural items. And this is an example of a policy that doesn't really have there's some direction from the commission on things that the commission has felt, had an opinion about that wouldn't require policy, like that our trucks be green, for example. But that's a thing that's in this policy, or that we put the shields on our doors to identify our field vehicles. So anyway, this policy, we've updated some. There's not a lot of big changes. This one does reference a state vehicle use policy out of A&I. The version that's being updated made reference to a specific version of the A&I vehicle policy, which has changed. So we're just saying follow whatever the current version is. And then the agency has an MOU with A&I over some things that are in the A&I policy that we wanted exceptions to, and those related to guns and dogs, I think.
Did you say dog policy?
Yeah, dog. That's a dog whistle. It's late in the day, sorry. Late in the morning, I guess. So without stepping through all those, the department, if you have questions, we'll be happy to answer them. Otherwise, the department recommends the commission vote to approve revisions of the vehicle policy.
It's been moved and seconded to approve these revisions. Any more discussion? There being none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? No opposition. Motion carries. Thank you.
President, members of the commission, the final policy here for your consideration is 4G on agreements. There's been some discussion that perhaps someone on the commission may wish to pause consideration of this. So before I launch in, I'll see if there's said.
Mr. President, if it's okay with the commissioners, I would ask that we table this one for now and do a little bit further review.
It's been moved and seconded to table this one. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? There being none, motion carries.
There's going to be a player to be named later who can do all that. And so thank you. You have something?
Mr. President, can I chime in? Could we maybe have clarity about further review? I think you guys nailed it. Dirk is going off to do other things. And so to make sure we get it right, what does that look like for you?
If I may, Mr. President, I think the casual discussion has been that your budget committee would work with this a little bit and see what it could come up with. And then, of course, run that through everyone at the director's office and try to get everybody on the same page. I don't think it's that heavy of a lift. I just think it's walking through it and getting it so everybody's on the same page, so to speak. So I believe that's what has been discussed. But that's certainly not written in stone if there's any objection to that.
Okay.
Maybe we could can we get Dirk under contract, for a short period of time and he can, come back in and do special appearances to help massage this policy?
The rate may be beyond what the, even an attorney would charge, but yeah. Director, did you get? Okay, so there's my go off into the fall picture.
Hey, Dirk, over here. Sorry, you're right. Thank you for everything. It's the saying is no one's irreplaceable, and that's, I think, except for kids and parents, but I've really enjoyed working with you, and I appreciate your patience and putting up with a lot of stupid questions. So thank you for everything. I wish you the absolute best. If you come through the center part of the state, I'll buy you a cup of coffee any old time.
I guess before we go to call the public, I just want to say a few words about Dirk and give some of his fellow chiefs a chance to speak and the director. Obviously, all of you saw the email that Dirk decided to pull the plug effective September 8th, I think. And I can't even begin to summarize his contributions. Even though I've only been here 7-ish years, it didn't take me long to realize the longevity that somebody like Dirk has and the contributions to the department every day, especially to the state, all the sports people in Wyoming and the wildlife and all the fellow red shirt wearers. Just a few highlights I'll remind you guys that you saw in an email probably a month or so ago. Over his 38-year career, beginning in 1988, hired as a fish population crew supervisor. 1996, assistant management coordinator. 2004, he was selected as fish management coordinator. 2012, selected as deputy chief of fisheries. And in 2024, selected as fiscal chief. And before I pass it to the fellow chiefs, I just want to say thank you, Dirk, for all you've done, all your dedication, your internal knowledge, and your friendship. I will miss listening to you and Tony go back and forth about your slideshow not being correct and on base not working correctly. So that's one thing I'll miss. But yeah, I've thought about the future September. And while I'd love to bring you back on a contract, I think you should just go hunt and enjoy the outdoors. But I wish you and your family the best. And I'll invite a few chiefs to say a couple words.
Yeah, where to start about Dirk. We're going to lose a lot of institutional knowledge with him for sure. And he's not crossing over the Rainbow Bridge, I hope, soon. But and we can always probably call him. I know him and his integrity. Dirk and I have been friends for a long time. And when I started in Laramie, he was there. I started as a trainee. And our sons are about the same age, 11 days apart. So we've known each other for a long time. And when I stepped into this job, I had a really steep learning curve. And without Dirk being willing to help me, it would have been even steeper. That just shows his level of professionalism and integrity. I mean, I asked him a lot of questions, and he was always very patient with me. I had a lot of ideas too. I'd say, hey, Dirk, what do you think about this idea? And he'd say, no. And I'd say, hey, what do you think about this idea? And he'd say, no. And finally, I was like, come on, man, throw me a bone just one time. That's a good idea, Alan. And he did eventually, maybe once or twice, do that for me. But he's just got so much knowledge, and we had a lot of good times, a lot of good conversations driving around the state, and that's what I'm going to miss. I can remember during COVID where I was in the office and he was at home and we were just a phone call away. But when we finally got back to the office, we missed each other, didn't we? And, it was just that being able to poke our heads into each other's office, bounce things off each other. And that's one thing I really appreciated about Dirk. He's got a lot of horsepower in that head, but he's able to boil it down, and he uses a lot of common sense when it comes into his decision-making processes. So you're going to be sadly missed by me, my friend, but hopefully, you know where we work and where we live. So thank you for everything.
Thanks, Dirk. 20 years. You've been a mentor to me, and I've loved collaborating with you, bantering with you, solving problems, taking trips. You've always been a cheerleader for fiscal, hence chief job. Mark Fowden, I think, really trained up fish guys really well to hold yourselves accountable and learn the stuff. Fiscal's another task in the jobs of every employee. And I've just really, really appreciated working with you this whole time. And I wish you and your family the best. You got big things coming ahead of you. So thanks, Dirk.
What can you say about Dirk? Like Alan said, when I took this job on, I was always in the northwest part of the state. Dirk was always in the southeast part of the state. We didn't get to interact much. And he took over as fiscal chief, and I thought, wow, why is a fish guy? You want to be the fiscal chief? And then I got to know Dirk, and man, this guy's got a lot of brain power, and he's got a lot of drive. And when I came, I had a steep learning curve as well. And Dirk was always really kind on trying to make sure that when I wasn't doing it right, that he straightened me out and got me on the right path. But one of the joys that Dirk and I get to share is license reviews. And Dirk always gets first cut at them, and then he brings it to me. And of course, I think when I took over, Dirk was the kind of the harder read on some of these. And then Dan came along and he became kind of the harder read on some of these. I'm trying not to use the word.
New sheriff in town.
Yeah, I'm trying not to use the word I shouldn't say in front of the commission. So I tried to follow the regulation, and Dirk would always come and talk to me, because the one thing that Dirk took out of all this that I didn't have to do is that when we rejected somebody, Dirk took the phone call. And so it's easy to sit back and go, yeah, no way am I going to approve that. Dirk would be like, well, can we kind of talk through this a little bit? And he won me over on some. I won him over on some, but he's really been, and even though he took on the chief job just a few months before I did, really been a mentor on trying to help me along. And I sure am going to miss him. The good thing is he has a cabin near where I have a cabin. And so I get to see him. He shows up at my place every once in a while, and it's going to be great to continue to see him. And of course, he knows where we are, so he can come and find us. So you're going to be missed, and thank you for everything.
I'll go next. So I'm the newer one on the block, but Dirk has a wealth of knowledge and experience, and has knowledge of really obscure things from way back when. Some of the stories he tells, I'm like, wow, that happened way back then. But it's been really great for me to learn from that and to learn from you, from those experiences you've had, and kind of the history of the agency as well. You've always had a really warm and kind personality, and I appreciate that too. And I have no problems asking you questions when they come up, so I appreciate that too. And I know, the fiscal division, everybody's going to miss you immensely when you're gone, but we wish you the best.
All right, I guess I'm last. you know, when Dirk first started with the department, I think Roy and I were 5. I think we were just getting into kindergarten. So when I first started with the department about 9 years ago, I got to spend quite a bit of time with Dirk, going out to dinner and things like that. So got to know him a little bit and had a handful of road trips together. And I've just always appreciated all the wonderful things he brings to the table at work, of course. And he's a very intelligent, high IQ person and just is, you know, super effective at what he's always done. But the thing that I've always really appreciated about Dirk is he has a great sense of humor. And he also just really cares about the people that he works with. And that comes across in different ways with all of us. But when I've had an opportunity to really talk things through with Dirk on, like I said, road trips or just in our offices going through things, he just genuinely cares. And that's not easy to replace in any instance. And he's been this one constant, a handful of us that since I started, and I'm going to really miss him. And he's just been a fantastic employee and a good friend. You'll be missed.
Yeah, Mr. President, I have a few thoughts too. Dirk, you're not quite done. And then I'll see if any commissioners have any other thoughts. But yeah, just thank you. It takes a lot at the end of your career to step up into a whole new division. And I remember at the time when we were interviewing you, it was evident that you were the right person at the right time. And I thank you for that because, you know, we don't see that too often. We will have a challenge. Alan, now when we're at our team meetings, we'll all turn and look to you for that historical input now that Dirk
Hey,
is going to
he's worked here longer than
I
me,
know.
so just, I am older.
So some big shoes to fill, but always really, really appreciate how you don't shy away from giving us your thoughts and your input, and it's based on a really solid experience. So you will be missed, but definitely wish you well.
Is it bad to say ditto?
Thank you.
No, I don't feel like we've gotten to work like one-on-one tons or anything like that, but with everything yesterday with the disability tags and things like that, I worked with Mike Choma forever on a lot of that stuff. And so it was nice to get to work with you and just, I appreciate how calm you are and just level-headed and even when things get emotional and stuff like that. So I would say stay away from Dan at Dan's cabin, but it sounds like you've got fun plans. So I'm looking forward to that for you. So just thank you for your work, especially the last couple of days.
Thank you. So in the Mike Choma vein, I showed up with a 3-ring binder for my last speech. And I'm just kidding. But there's my notes there. You know, I just want to say thank you. Wow, this is great. I swore I didn't want to have a retirement party, and so I guess I got to have one anyway. But it's been a great honor, you know, really amazing people, dedicated people, smart people, people who cared. And I didn't know, you know, what opportunities would lie ahead when I walked in the Laramie office in March of 1988. But anyway, thanks to all of you. I appreciate the compassion. I tried to do the math. I think this is my somewhere between 90th or 100th, between 90 and 100 commission meetings I've gone to in 38 years. So seen a lot of different people come and go, and you all care about your job, and I appreciate you, and the amazing employees here. So anyway, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, the last thing we've got is any public got anything to say today? I'm not hearing anything, so I think we're finished.
I'll make a motion that we adjourn.
I've got a motion to adjourn. Do I have a second?
Second.
Got a motion and a second to adjourn. All in favor signify by saying aye. Those opposed? We're adjourned.